Hello, hello, hello. This is Doc. Just doing a little drop in on the top of the show as I was editing this. Some big news had dropped on May 6th, 2026. Ted Turner, at the age of 87, has passed away. Ted Turner, you know him. He is one of the titans of television. He was there at the advent of cable television. He is a media mogul, sports team owner because he owned the Atlanta Braves and the Hawks. He actually brought Giant Gonzalez in to be on the Atlanta Hawks, but it didn't work out, so he made him a wrestler. Billionaire philanthropist because he believed in saving the planet, making parks, providing jobs, getting news, preserving film, and of course, showcasing pro wrestling on his network. Sting and Tony Schiavone did a very good job, sort of summarizing his roles and his support of pro wrestling. And without Ted Turner, the Turner Networks, I wouldn't have been as big a fan of pro wrestling as I am and as I became. And thank you Ted Turner for not only pro wrestling. Thank you Ted Turner for the Cartoon Network. Thank you Ted Turner for saving the Looney Tunes. I know, like, you guys heard this show from our onset on State of Wrestling. I always bring up, the Looney Tunes and all that, but I wouldn't have watched it without, Ted Turner preserving them. And he's done a lot. Uh, Wrestling is just a little bit of it, but I'm gonna give the reins of this because my friend Corey from Troubles Wrestling, he hosts a podcast from Crockett to Chaos. He can also read some of his writing on voicesofwrestling.com. Voices of Wrestling, where you can get all your news, interviews, yada yada yada. But this is about Ted Turner. Passed away. Did a lot. Did a lot. So go ahead, Corey. Passing
Thank
the
you so
baton
much
to
for
you.
that intro, Doc. And yeah, it's wild to think about a world without Ted Turner. Where do you even begin? A man that owned the Atlanta Hawks, owned the Atlanta Braves. He quite literally changed the skyline of Atlanta with CNN Tower and all these other projects that he had. And most of all, Ted Turner changed television for people around the world with the superstation WTBS and what that meant, of course, not just for sports, but professional wrestling. And one thing I do want to say about Ted Turner that doesn't get enough press would be his conservation efforts. He was a huge leading power to the bison conservation efforts of the 80s and 90s. And as a part Native American man, that hits home. And Ted deserves a lot of credit for saving so many thousands of bison over his time, creating ranches that are immune to private or public scrutiny. And they are basically places that they are reserves. They are there so that bison can roam freely and live their lives forever. And Ted deserves a lot of credit for that. And I hope he does as we move forward in memorializing his life. And of course, Ted Turner, we've mentioned 6:05 Eastern, Saturdays. I mean, that's what I started with, oddly enough. I started watching professional wrestling in early 94. So right before Hogan came to WCW. So I do remember those last few days of WCW living and dying by that 6:05, 5:05, because I was in Central Time, time slot. And it was the coolest thing ever, man. I love Saturday night. I loved it in the studio. I don't care what anyone says. I always will be super into studio wrestling, and it's because of WTBS. And then when I went back as an older person on YouTube and finding the Crockett stuff that aired on there, it's just that to me is professional wrestling. The wrestling that was aired on Turner Networks. Because then, of course, Nitro happens a year into my fandom. All things that sadly at the time you take for granted because you think the world that you live in as a child will just always be the world you live in. And of course, we all find out either, harshly or not, that that is not the case. And, I fondly remember those days of Nitro and my favorite WCW show of all time, Thunder, of course. Ted deserves a lot of credit though, because when you really do break it down and look into the reality of what was going on in '88 and onward, he saved professional wrestling for us. Because knowing how Vince McMahon is now in hindsight, and knowing what he did with other entities such as WCW eventually, ECW, whatever the fuck they'll end up doing to AAA, he did. He saved wrestling. He saved heat generating, about the in-ring kind of wrestling for all of us. And for Ted, I just say thank you, sir. You made life better for me. I know that sounds really, really dramatic, but the 90s make me feel warm and fuzzy, mainly because of Ted Turner. And another thing, as I close this, he's also the head behind creating Cartoon Network, which then led to Adult Swim, which became a huge influence in the way that I enjoy humor and art and all that. So overall, we lost a very, very special person. Rest in peace, Ted Turner. The world will not be the same without you, buddy.
My DNA, cocaine quarter piece, got war and peace inside my DNA. I got power, poison, pain, and joy inside my DNA. I got hustle, though, ambition, flow inside my DNA. I was born like this, born like this, immaculate conception. I transform like this, perform like this, will shout you a new weapon. I don't contemplate, I meditate, they're off your fucking head. This that put the kids to bed. This that I got realness. I just kill shit cause it's in my DNA. I got millions, I got riches building in my DNA. I got dark, I got evil that rot inside my DNA.
Hello. This is Doc. Welcome to State of Wrestling. I know I sound a little bit down, but let me get you guys up on this. Go to thegreatfowler.com. Me and BJ's real friend, Jay Fowler, is going through some things. It really sucks. Go to thegreatfowler.com. Help a brother out. And now on with the regular program. Also, we're not sponsored by anybody, but go to Amazon.com. Artist in Mexico. There's this book that we're using for our Lucha Libre series called The History of Mexican Pro Wrestling. The link for that will be in the episode description.
Yeah, it's Artes de Mexico presents Lucha Libre. It's $20 on Amazon. It is a very beautiful coffee table book, but it's also really good.
Absolutely.
Illustrations, very fun photos. It's awesome. I'm looking at this great, LA Park, a kid dressed like the LA Park, one of the photos. And a family with everyone dressed in masks.
Yeah, they also have great paintings in there, great stories.
Yes,
one of the contributors to that is, of course, our great friend of the show, Orlando Jimenez Ruiz, El Escandaro. The documentarian, writer, director. He's also involved with this book that's coming out. You can see the Kickstarter for it, but it's called Luchadores is Everyone. You can check out them on their social media. Also, they're in a partnership with Master Public, a great lucha program there. They run shows, they do history, they do a lot of pop-up stuff. Great guys there. Last Master Public. I'll also say, if you guys heard us talk about old school territorial wrestling, go to the Savoldi network. You guys have heard about Lou Savoldi and the Savoldi brothers. Well, they have their own network. It's available on Roku. They do not pay us
but I watched so much of their stuff there from like IWA Puerto Rico, from Houston, from California. I watched so much on there. There's a lot on there. Go check it out. They posted a posted a promo of Greg the Hammer Valentine forgetting which Outlaw Mud Show title he had won. I think it was an IWA title or IWC title or IWWCC. It gets like that. But yeah, go there. Check all that stuff out. Again, not at all affiliated with those people. Those are just things I'm very interested in.
So it's pretty cool like that.
And yeah, this is Dr. Lariat, aka Cero Mierda, aka Lucha Liberace, aka LA Bark, because I like to get some bones in there. Aka your host, and this is State of Wrestling. Of course, joining me is mi pareja, mi primo, aka El Cabron Super Nintendo, Arturo. And of course,
I was gonna
Go ahead.
say, like, for anybody, like, I'm tracking the NBA numbers, and all I'm gonna say is my model right now. I think it's 12. I was talking to Doc. It's 12-7 versus underdogs on serious bets for the last 4 years. Which, if you know anything, that's pretty damn good. So, hey, it's American numbers.
Hey.
At Twitter.x.com. Like, if you like free basketball picks that do well, hey, for some reason I've been doing this for free for decades. So, hey, go ahead and see it.
Yeah, man. Also, go to bbethel.substack.com to read the third member of State of Wrestling, BJ Bethel's articles, news updates, and his podcast. We got Flying BJ. What better gift to give people than a BJ? What's up, BJ?
Oh, dang.
Quit saying that. Anyway, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
I'm gonna call you something here. El Coloso de Sega Genesis. There you go.
Are you calling me a Sega Master System?
Hey, you said it. But
I don't know. I don't know whether that's a compliment or a dig, but I'll take it. Whatever.
Well,
Hey,
he could have
man,
called you. He could have called you an Xbox, BJ. So you gotta take things.
But
Well, then
Sega
that'd mean
does
I would have died of the red ring of death 6
There you
months
go.
out of the womb.
Oh my god. Yes, Sega does what Nintendo don't. And PS3 had that orange light that came on, and that's when you knew that your PS3 was dead. My PS2, my OG PS2 is still alive. My PSX.
I had a PS3 die on me like that with the orange ring, and they replaced it for free. So I'm good.
Hey, sometimes
Client for
Hey,
life.
Sony.
Client for life. Client for life,
Hey.
baby.
Hey Sony, holla at your boys. I've been a Sony playboy since like 1997. So I'm all about Sony. They're about to release their own arcade fight stick. You haven't heard that podcast yet, but yeah, me and Arturo are like old school fighting game heads. BJ, you ever play any like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat when you were growing up?
Yeah, I played a little of both. I work with somebody who actually kind of plays Street Fighter at the pro level, and I was telling him I shouldn't be talking about this. I actually got into 3 different fights while playing Street Fighter, like actual fist fights. One time a group of guys tried to jump me in a mall. Another time me and a friend got into a shoving match, and we got kicked out of an arcade, and or at a local pizza joint, Fast Eddie's Pizza, Belleville, Ohio, best pizza. Then another one was just a guy was bullying a kid. I told him to stop it, and he told me to mind my own business. I told him you could mind my foot in his ass, and then went from there. But anyway, that's my fighting game story. Is I lost a lot. I'll just say that, and but I fared better at the other stuff. I don't know what am I doing. Go ahead.
Oh man, like when I played X-Men versus Street Fighter this one time, this guy came up in the arcade and like pulled a knife on me after I beat him like I think 5 times in a row. Cause like it's one of those arcades that has like the front to back. So like after I beat him the 5th time, he ran to the other side and said, "I'm gonna freaking gut you, kid." And I was like, so it's 1996, so I would have been like about 11.
Good Lord, man! I thought my fight, no one pulled a knife or a gun on me, but yeah, I mean
that's East LA for you, bro.
he didn't yell finish him, did he? Good Lord.
Larry, were you spamming short punches?
Yeah. So I was using, using
Okay.
Akuma and a Wolverine. So if you know, you know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Were you spam? Were you spam? Were you doing spam?
of course, man. That you
Of
you hit
course.
one, you get one hit in X-Men versus Street Fighter
I think.
against someone that knows how to do combos, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Um,
Yeah. I'm not gonna defend the guy who pulled the knife on you, but I can understand.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, I can understand. That's what. Oh my
Hey,
god.
I would not do it personally, but
hey, guys, big news. Contracts came up, offers were given. Apparently, 50% pay cuts were given. What you guys think about that?
uh, because I want to like bring this up because I've been kind of preparing to do a mea culpa a lot to take a hit on the whole Roman contract. And hey, I was wrong. And you know what? They don't seem to want to let me because they've put out some weird stuff. There's a lot of noise around the contracts. And again, this is what I've been saying, but apparently it hit and it's hit way worse than we kind of expected to the point where like they're fucking with a lot of people money. Like, what was Brian Alvarez line from today? He's talking about like today's Monday, so he was talking about like he's heard some names, way more names than like what's actually out there. And we can kind of concur with some of that stuff. Where like it does sound like WWE. Like I was like I'm hearing this and I'm going like I'm saying that like those SummerSlam pre-sales must suck, right? Between
Oh my
that, we
god.
kind of think that Saudi show isn't going to happen. So I think that they're kind of operating with like 100,
No.
like they're operating with a bunch of shortfalls. And I think God, how much was the actual like TKO price? I know the TKO price.
It was a 184, I think, a day or two ago. Because someone
Right?
yelled at me on Twitter when I said the last time I checked it was 200. They're like, "It's not 200, it's 185." And I look, and I'm like, "Okay, I'm sorry. I don't invest in anything. I don't
And
watch the
so
TKO stock every
I'm going to look
single
at the
moment."
stock for the last 6 months, and it is today. It's at like 186, right? Which is, I mean, the high. I think some of that. I mean,
I mean, they got to what, around 220?
yeah, I think that because the assumption on that stock was like there was a hot rumor going around that at some point like TKO might sell it, so people kind of thought that they might sell it to Saudis at some point. So that kind of like drove up the price a little bit. But I think like a lot of the kind of other things now that's starting to catch up, there's some real like downwinds on that. We talked about that, and we think that like part of that because if the Saudi show that's coming up falls through, and the Saudi and the SummerSlam pre-sales are shitty, which kind of looks like it, they still have to. We've talked about this. They have to meet their earnings target. So what do? They start cutting people's money, right? Because since the wrestlers aren't unionized, and PJ and I might actually be writing about that at some point. That means that like they can screw around with the money, and what they do is they say, "Hey, you're under contract, and we can either cut you, or you can take a lower rate," right? Which is I think what they offered to the New Day, right? So the New Day basically said, "Hey."
Yeah, I think that's pretty much confirmed. They told them we want to pay you less. New Day said,
No.
kiss our butt, and they're now on probably day. I think they've been officially released. They're on a 90-day
Well, I mean, there was
wait
this.
non-compete, which is still bullshit.
Well,
But
nobody's. The thing with that 90-day, if you look at the case law, it's a bullshit law. It probably wouldn't hold, but it's expensive to fight, right? So
yes, it's
no
like
one's
anything
like
EOC or independent contractor related. They just allure you to death till you give up, or you just take a
we were
settlement.
yeah, because essentially you can just wait out the 90 days because actually you get a paycheck during the night. You can basically just wait the 90 days, get your paycheck, and then kind of show up. So it's you're essentially incentivized just to let it go.
Yes.
The example we were talking about this example beforehand. We were talking about Andrade, and the Andrade situation was one where like the luchadors are they're unionized, and there's like a lot more kind of know-how on that, so they were willing to push it. So he was taking bookings once they released them, being under the argument, "Hey, you released me, so I can fucking take bookings." And then TKO kind of understood that they fucked up with him, pardon my French, and then they started to like try to get cease and desists to like these different companies. So this is why like nobody brought him in. A couple people brought him in, and essentially what happened is TKO basically threw that out there, and then they also kind of put out the stories about like supposedly the drug suspension and like him being a bad, the typical TP like WWE PR bullshit when they're doing something else. And
Yeah.
that was around that. Like, ooh, speaking of like typical WWE PR nonsense, we'll get into that in a bit. There's a saying in Latin, I believe it's God, what is it? Is it quo vadis? Who profits? I probably said that wrong. Who benefits in Latin, which is it is cui bono, right? It means to whom is it a benefit, right? So while WWE is doing all these like releases and like they're cutting people's salaries and like they're having a bunch of financial problems, wouldn't you know that one of friends of the podcast or enemies of the podcast, I guess, is going around with like pushing this bullshit narrative that like, hey, AEW isn't paying anybody and their money's fake, right?
And
like,
they don't
it's
have
really kind of fun.
they don't have a deal at the table. Also, by the way, thank you for the extra listeners again.
But I mean, I think the funny part about this is like the idea is like I think in the podcast there's a lot of he went on this podcast and he's talking, and it's I'm not going to mention him. It's like but you can find him. It's Agent Nick, right? So, he's talking about how supposedly like nobody's really paid for real, right? And I'm going, okay, so you're saying since 2019 this company hasn't paid anybody, and Chris Jericho, right, who has a super popular podcast. And Barry Bloom is like considered one of the agent for wrestlers. Hasn't said shit about people not getting paid. That seems strange. You're saying that an NFL owner isn't paying people. That seems very strange.
That's odd.
But I mean, like, I mean, again, the point being that, like, why is this story kind of like going all over the place in like what we call the friendly media to WWE? Well, because they're trying to make the wrestlers believe that like they can't get paid or the paychecks they get in the other company aren't safe, and two, they're trying to distract from the PR from what they're doing, right? So it's
I mean, there's I think a couple things that could explain that. I mean, one is somebody begging for engagement and clicks, or not clicks, but just attention, and the other is, I mean, maybe somebody's leaking it out there just because of the bad week WWE's had. The thing I don't get though is just that what is interesting to me about the TKO situation, WE, is that this is all self-created. Like the ticket sales of Mania would have been better if they hadn't just raised them too high. I mean, the booking would be better if they just decided that it was important to book and that we're not going to sit on our butt and just say, oh, we're getting paid the same no matter what if we book a good show or put expensive people on it. What we might as well just do a crap show. All this stuff's so self-created, and it's like, okay, now you got people that you got a beloved tag team, maybe the greatest tag team in the history of WWE, maybe the greatest stable in the history of WWE, and I think at least the top two in either category, maybe top one. I think top tag team by far.
They're like the easiest signing for TK in the history.
Oh, I mean, I always thought if they would have went to AEW in 2019, when they were still kind of peaking in WWE, and with their creative mindset and the things they're able to do and their wrestling ability and the charisma those three guys had, they would have exploded beyond.
Oh, I mean, like
I think AEW would have had that extra bunch of stars that they really needed at that time.
Yeah, these guys were arguably the biggest star in the promotion at certain points for WWE.
Oh yeah, and it's just I don't get, it's basically what this comes down to is it's the private equity mindset where we're going to okay, we don't think we're not making more on the top right now with ticket sales or past Mania. We may lose this, we're gonna but we want to save money anyway because we're always in the business of saving money, so we're gonna tell the wrestlers, okay, we're gonna cut your pay. And it's like, okay, this is just needless private equity BS. And it's something that somebody that actually is a business person or has to create something for a living doesn't do. And that's why you're seeing this happen. I mean, WWE is still making record profits, but the thing is that the reason it's able to make record profits and get these sponsorships and sign these deals is because of the people wrestling there.
I'm gonna use the example and like, oh god, people got mad at me in like one of our discords when I called it inshinification because they were like, oh, it only applies to like internet, like, but no, it really doesn't. Like, I read Corey Doctorow, I follow Corey Doctorow, who's the guy who came up with it, and the idea is that essentially private equity is coming in and this tech mindset is coming in, and it's all about wealth extraction. It's not really about protecting the product.
Yes.
Where it kind of
extractions. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, there's a lot of stories about things like KFC and like other different businesses that like when they get into this equity loop, they basically you don't care about the product, and the problem is like if you don't care about the product, you don't care about the customer, you're essentially like destroying what the product is. And like it's the argument I use for like you're not owed my money for like producing a Star Wars film, right? Like if you produce a Star Wars film, that Star Wars film or that Star Wars show or that Star Trek film or that Star Trek show is shit, then you're not getting my money, and you're less likely to get my money the next time around. So just because you own an IP, which essentially WWE is an IP, if you make the shows worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, you eventually are gonna like drive your customers away, right? Because they're gonna be like, which is, I mean, I made the argument. I think we were at one point we talked about like the Pepsi and Coca-Cola kind of thing, and I said, yeah, I mean, like AEW, CMLL, all these companies, they're focused on being like, just make good product, right? Like, don't worry about the restaurant or the company or the IP that's on this loop, on this path to downfall, because I mean you can see the product getting worse. I mean, like we were talking about that Mania, like that Mania was a mess in terms of like shittier production values. They had ads on everything. The matches were like shitty and short. It was really, I mean, that the Saturday night was really like a B-level pay-per-view, right?
Have you guys seen the Steven Spielberg movie based off the book Ready Player One?
Yes.
And you remember the scene where Ben Mendelsohn's in the office and he's telling him about, hey, this is what we're going to do if we get the hold of this, the virtual reality system that the movie's premised on. And it's like, we found it. If we can, we can take up as much as 85% of the viewers, visual space in this thing they use to look at the virtual reality game without inducing seizures. And I felt like that's what they're kind of doing with TKO and the WWE fans, where it's like, okay, we're gonna do this, we're gonna push this to the point where they're gonna break, and it's so self-defeating and dumb. But this is like people that don't really understand how to build anything. I mean,
it's the exact same thing that happens. It's the restaurant group, right? If I'm continuously coming in and paying more and getting less food and shittier food, right? Then it reminds me of like a little bit like, oh, I buy this bread, and I've always bought this bread, which I use. It's like the wheat bread with like the 12 grain thing, right? I'm not sponsored, right? And I used to work in manufacturing, so I can tell they're doing two things to this bread, right? They're putting less flour in the bread, and I can tell because when I cut the slices, there's these holes that form in the middle of the bread, which I know because I'm familiar with the yeasting process of that process. Essentially, by putting that, it forms air bubbles. So essentially, I know that they're trying to sell me the same product, but they're putting less ingredients in, right?
More air, less bread.
More air, less bread. And essentially, it is exactly the thing that's going on with WWE, which is like more ads, less product, right? So, I mean, like, those shows are like 3.5 hours. And I think the other part, which I also kind of noticed when I was watching Mania, and I was like, "Oh, this bodes ill." So they moved the Andre. The thing that Vince used to do is he put the Andre, which is the big battle royal. They put it on the Saturday and like get everybody in to get everybody a paycheck, right? So you get everybody a paycheck on that day, and like that brings the bottom. But like these guys moved that to like the Friday show, so they ran Mania with the least amount of people possible. And after that,
so they don't have to give the bonuses.
So they have to, which is, I mean, I think it's hitting on the cost side. But the thing I'm actually like really curious about, right, is, okay, so they're booking these celebrities in these angles and these main event matches. Are they paying these guys anything? Like, did Pat McAfee get a paycheck? Or is basically, are they getting like are they filling main event slot like pro bono essentially?
I mean, I think they'd have to be getting paid. I think because they basically. I don't think you're going to get McAfee unless you're paying the money. You wouldn't even have Steve. You wouldn't get Stephen A. Smith talking about showing up unless he was getting paid. He doesn't care. He could care less about pro wrestling.
He's coming in kind of like as an ESPN kind of employee, really. And is he like? I'm wondering if he's getting paid scale as an actor, essentially.
I don't think so. I think if they're gonna, because you got to remember, he's also but he's an actor, but he's not. SAG doesn't represent WWE. And he would be getting, but to get him to show up on something like that, he's not going to go there unless they're paying him the money.
I would be fascinated to know what him and Jellybean got paid if they got paid.
I'm sure it's a ton. Because they look where they put the value at. They flat tell you they want the celebrities, they want the influencers.
But the thing about this is also it's a one-time fee. It's not on a salary budget. We've talked about this before because essentially, like, it's probably coming from another budget, not necessarily coming from them. Like even the Pat thing might have come from ESPN, right? Because they're kind of pushing that. And now they're putting Cena supposedly. Like, this is the other funny part. Like it's going so well that they've already booked Cena again for Backlash, right? which is okay. So what's happening? And again, like we were talking about this before.
I want to hear somebody in their Joey Styles voice go, Backlash?
Backlash.
Backlash?
Backlash.
The one really
Oh,
funny.
man.
So the other funny, as I said, I wanted to think like a Maya Poople app on the Roman stuff, but like they really don't want to let me because so Roman comes out after Mania and he says he's going to be here all summer. Like literally comes out on the air and says, "I am going to be here all summer." And now, supposedly, like again, Mike Johnson, state media, Mike Johnson puts out that like, and I'm kidding, Mike, I love you, but you know you get like the direct scoops from the WWE office sometimes. And he puts out the story that no, it's a clerical error. But like, dude, I have video. I have Roman in 4K saying I will be here all summer, right? So, and we kind of know that Roman gets paid on a appearance deal unless that changed. So they probably promised he was going to be in. Now they said, no, we don't really need you. So like we were talking about this before, like if he was promised 12 dates at like what, like $500,000 per date, like 5, 6, he's promised a bunch of money through Mania and like SummerSlam. This seems like it's not going to happen now, right? So like that's like really kind of what the hell's going on here. They really, again, like everything indicates to me that like they think that this quarter is going to be a bloodbath because they're trying to cut everybody's kind of pay. And again, we talked about the union thing a little bit, and I'll mention this. I was talking to BJ about this, like in some other thing. To give people my background, like when I started writing, I used to write about basketball a lot. I still do occasionally, but I started writing this stuff. My mentor was a guy called Dave Berry. He's a professor of sports economics. And one of our big causes was getting student athletes paid, right? We wanted to get student athletes paid because there's a whole history of that being kind of shit. And we kind of want to help. And like, we didn't think, like, this is like what, 2010, 2009. We didn't think that this was ever going to happen. But obviously, we're going to like write this stuff and put that. Like, we started putting data together. He ended up helping. He was deposed in the Ed O'Bannon case, and we produced data for that. He was deposed in the Northwestern case, which is a case where like the Northwestern athletes unionized. And eventually we started writing stuff and doing stuff, and a lot of that information kind of helped, right? And you know, we've heard from players who told us that stuff kind of helped them get paid. And you know, it was a long process, and I never like initially when I started doing it, like I thought it would never happen. And then it's funny because like Dave now is a guy, he works for WNBA teams and the players. So I was actually like even feeding numbers to him to feed to the WNBA Players Union, right? It's like, hey, Dave, look at this, right? And they basically just negotiated a new contract that guarantees them a cut of the profit. And the reason I bring that up is because we kind of know that WWE athletes are wrestlers are getting like so. I mean, depends on the year, depends on what we're looking for. I think Brandon had 50% of profit. BJ, like the last number we said,
15% was what he had as the overhead labor cost, and he compared because he put up tweets on Brandon Thurston WrestleNomics post wrestling. He put a couple tweets up where he was pairing the CEO pay of Ari Emanuel, Mark Shapiro, I think, in Nick Khan, and he was comparing that to what the overhead is, and basically in the last 3 years, I think Nick Khan's pay exploded like maybe 3-4 percentage, like 3-4 times. I think one of the others was 2 or 3 times. The other one was a little bit, maybe less than half, maybe around 80% of an increase.
Yeah, essentially, the worst revenue share for any athlete group really was the WNBA players. They had 9% of the revenue, and which is about the same as the wrestlers. And now they've moved it now to 20% on their new CBA, which is still low, but it's much better. And the reason I bring up, and good that you bring the area stuff, like one of the things that we would harp on when we were talking about like college athletes not getting paid was like you could look at rising pay for athletic directors and general managers and all the executives, everybody else who's getting paid, right? So
administrators, coaches definitely, because they're getting $40, $50, $60 million cushion. I think Ryan Day has a $70 million cushion if he gets fired.
Don't be like I think I forget what the number is. Something like I think it's a lot of states where the highest paid public employee is the coach of whatever the school is in that.
Oh, in the South and the Midwest. I mean, almost. I think
I'm pretty
always.
sure you're in Ohio. I'm pretty sure the coach of Ohio State is probably the highest paid employee.
Oh, at least since back to Tressel, probably even before that to John Cooper.
But
that's talking 90s, 2000s.
When you start seeing these ridiculous numbers on the executive side, that's a good indicator that like the athletes or the wrestlers should kind of unionize because they're literally leaving. You guys are leaving billions of dollars on the table. I'm not joking, because if like the revenue for WWE was like 2 billion, I think it was like 1.7 or 2 billion last year, right? And you're getting 10%, and like even the women in the WNBA are getting 20. Essentially, it means you're leaving like 170 million dollars on the table, right? And
Yeah.
170 million dollars over 10 years, if you're like that's like $2 billion, right?
Yeah.
That like is revenue that could have gone to like hey, medical bills or like travel or like
Yeah. Some of the stuff that they got to pay out of pocket,
yeah, and I
or,
think
and
the
the thing,
situation is
if what's crazy to me is just this is something that needs to be discussed in this circumstances. This is a cultural wrestling deal where you have people like Stevie Richards or Bully Ray here that that AEW is spending most of its money on its talent. Well, that's insane. You can't do that and stay in business. Well, I hate to tell you this, most businesses, 90% and 99% of their businesses, their biggest costs are employees or the
well,
people
I
or
mean,
their
like
contractors, and
essentially
it's
like
just
you gotta.
the thing is that that mentality is why this is in place in the first place, and
Well,
it's
I mean,
getting
to
people to
Tony's
realize that okay, in the NBA it's 50, 60, 70%, it's in the NFL it's that much,
so
and people, so they were
Tony's
acting
paying
like 15. That's
supposedly.
why 15% seems ungodly to them, because it used to be 5, 6%, which is
Yeah,
insane.
Tony's paying 55% supposedly. I mean, I haven't like done the math on this, but I know that like Russell Long has had like there's somebody out there was arguing 55%. To put that in perspective, 50% is what the NFL pays, and there's estimates that it's 2/3, 66% in the Premier League. So Tony and his dad, being Premier League owners and NFL football owners, know that paying 55, right,
Yeah,
to them is that's yeah. I mean, like, and like again, like the other part about this is like Tony also knows that he's getting the equity part, and what I mean by the equity part is something like the smarter players, like WNBA, like the NBA players are starting to argue about this, which is like, yeah, like we're getting the profit, but we're not getting it like when these like franchises balloon in cost, right? The stock goes up, we don't get any of the equity money, and that was actually like a real thing
Yeah,
because the NBA
you know
teams are like,
it's
but
Oh, sorry. As we're talking about equity and like players getting the same, money as what the companies are making, I just want to bring this up because it's Monday. There was Monday Night Raw. Yeah, people, I'm into the Roman and Jacob program. So
yeah,
in the
I saw
Roman and
I
Jacob
watched that.
in the Roman and Jacob program, right? Roman is talking about how he's running WWE contract. It was the whole thing about contracts. Throughout the night, they're making jokes about being fired, about contracts, about not getting paid, about the difference between contracts in Mexico and America. And then, like at the last promo, Roman and Jacob were doing a promo about being paid, right? About being paid. And then Jacob's big line in there was, "I'm looking to get paid, just like this company choked all the money out of our family. I'm gonna choke all the money out of this company," which is pretty funny
Well, I
because
mean, like there's history there because like what people don't know is the allies who like God, like we've gotten like people say that like we're lowbrow. Like if anybody claims we're lowbrow, they can't because we get into history here, we get into economics, we get into that. But like the Anoi family used to run the Hawaii territory, right, through High Chief Maivia, and like that's one of the things is kind of like they feel a little bit like they screwed their grandma out of the some of that money, right? Um, although I mean, like I think like generally relations have been good, but I think that TKO. I mean, if they had goodwill to Vince, I don't know if they necessarily have that much goodwill to. Although Nick's kind of a boy to them, so I don't know if like it's a weird relationship with that Anoa'i family in WWE, right? Um,
I mean it's up and down. I mean it depends on it depends on the
yeah,
year really,
it depends on the
but
year. Yeah.
but the what's interesting too about this, the way this news has come out and the way they were addressing on Raw is last week in the Wrestling Observer, Dave Meltzer reported that they've talked to talent about. I guess they recently had the town hall meeting with talent, and they were talking about the dirt sheets, quote unquote, and how the negative stuff you see on the internet or anything you see reported is actually a very, 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 very vocal minority. Blah blah blah, and they were reading stuff they thought was like ridiculous tweets about how Roman wasn't working in 2015 and he was a bum. And it's like, well, he wasn't working in 2015 and he was getting booed when you were trying to make him a babyface, but never mind that. But they were trying to make this case that, you know, nobody cares about the internet. At the same time, they're doing all this contract stuff and yapping like they did with McAfee and that angle with Randy Orton ahead of WrestleMania. It was that, you know, oh, you know, we're going to get this back to wrestling, no more influencers and all that coming from an influencer. Now they're making it's like, okay, so it's no negative. No one really pays attention to it. Your fans are totally, you have no idea it's happening, but we're going to use it
But
in all of our
BJ,
creative on the show. It's like,
BJ, the
what
news
sense does that
was
make?
that TKO was very satisfied with Jelly Roll, with I Show Speed, with Pat McAfee. That was the big news rollout that they were very happy with their performances for WrestleMania.
Well, I mean, they did what they were supposed to do, and you know,
Yeah.
they love wrestling, so it fits. Um, but I think it's just funny that they keep going back. It's like they're using stuff that people were talking about on Twitter. In a wrestling, it's like, okay, if this is just negative stuff and if it's not important, why do you think your overall audience is going to like it? Why are
Well, I
you
mean,
even
I think
addressing it?
and it kind of gets to there's a narrative that's they've been pushing, and you know we talked a little bit about like people who are out there pushing it right now, but like that we're the only real paycheck. This money's coming from like, um, you know, and some of it is kind of goes into very weird places that like this is not real money somehow, and I think that like look if there are any wrestlers
Real
who listen to
money?
this, well
We want to
you
talk
know
real money?
I'm gonna say like if wrestlers are listening to this, you know, and I know some of
So
the wrestlers are.
that's
No,
the
no, but
explain.
I'm gonna say just go look up the TKO lawsuit with the UFC fighters, right? And look up at how all that went and how they treated the UFC fighters and how eventually the court awarded the UFC fighters a bunch of money because they're like these guys are abusing you
Uh,
and so like they
the
felt
cool
like these
part
guys
about
were
that,
owed
Arturo,
money.
was they settled, but then the judge said, no, we can get you more money.
Well, I'm gonna like they settled, and the judge was so offended that he basically reopened it and gave them more money, right? So you understand who you're dealing with, right? And so that like this isn't me, this is a judge saying this to that, and there's a history of there's a pattern, right? And I
Yeah.
think that I'll say the other part I'll say is that essentially, if you look at somebody was asking me about the Ali Act and like whether I thought it was a good thing for the Ali Act, and I said, look, if TKO is suggesting something, you should go out in the desert, dig a 1 mile wide hole, throw it in there, and like throw all the dirt and like make sure that like it's not going to harm you, right? Because
Yeah.
generally it's not going to be a good idea for anybody else to do that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm also gonna just take this opportunity because someone my good friend is joining us here. We were talking about dirt sheets earlier. My friend Airgold is here on the air with us. I believe this will be his podcast debut on anything. What's up, Air?
How you doing? How's everybody?
Pretty
BJ,
good.
Arturo, nice to meet
up?
both of you.
Yeah, pretty good. We were talking about TKO and how TKO treats its workers. Basically, was
Yeah.
the-
And I also wanted to bring this up because you know a lot of people were hammering my dude here, reposting the Nick LaPiccolo stuff, right? But this dude isn't really saying that Nick LaPiccolo was right. He was just reposting that shit because it was ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were a lot of like if we're gonna let's address that. So, we
Hey, I
talked-
feel you, bud.
yeah, I'm gonna because I'm gonna take the lead on this because I know BJ has a history here and I don't want to get into trouble. So,
Well, I just want to say, wait, before you start this, and we're getting on the stuff of being misconstrued. All I did was reply to somebody who mentioned Roman Reigns. I didn't mean it in to construe that he just had his contract reworked. He resigned. I was saying this was what I meant was that this was something that was going on with his contract remakings. If I was making a post or a story, I'd have been more clear. But I didn't know my replies were suddenly becoming stories for everybody. But I want to apologize to anybody if I misled them by accident. I also want to apologize to anybody if they took it out of work. And I also want to tell anybody, unless I make at least its own post, don't take anything in my reply seriously because it's very character limited and I have fat fingers. So
Yeah.
that's all I'm going to say after that. Air, go right ahead.
I was gonna say the one thing. Okay, so the one thing on the Roman thing in your defense is that, like, as of now, nothing's been confirmed with Roman. The story that was out was like kind of implicating that they made an agreement, and also Dave
I'm
left
full
himself
time for the summer.
Well, he said that, but then they said it was a clerical error, and like Dave has left himself leeway on the comments that he said. He said basically, he said we don't know. He essentially said we don't know what's going to happen, which was to me somewhat surprising because I thought we kind of knew. But
yeah, I mean, I'm not suggesting there wasn't problems, and there still isn't. All I'm saying is that this isn't a case of him having a contract and then all of a sudden to renegotiate it. This is something that's been going on for a while. And
I'm gonna say a hypothetical without getting anybody into trouble, hopefully, which is
what fun is that?
But I'm gonna say basically there may be a lot of noise out there about all the top guys in WWE getting their money fucked with, right? In different degrees. Now, I'm not saying every money guy is taking like a huge pay cut, but the suggestion that's out there is that like TKO is kind of like, that's what we're saying, like they may be short on cash. They're talking to a lot of talent, including like any name that you can kind of think of has probably had a conversation. Which is why I'm like, this is what we're hearing, right? Like this is like, and I said, Brian Allen's talked about a bunch of other surprising names. We've heard some noise about people like maybe like trying to unburn some bridges very quickly. And
there's a non-zero chance of that.
Yes. Let's, but not to get anybody into trouble. Like, so that's kind of, and like, so now we're gonna address now. I think one of our, like Joe Lance might call it legental activity. Essentially, I was talking about this earlier. When you see something like that, we know that the agent Nick is a guy who got into trouble for like things that he said and possibly lost his job because of it. And but again, he gets people talk to him, right? Doesn't mean that the things that he gets are credible. People do say things to him. But you got to remember, like we've talked about this in media literacy, somebody's saying something to him, so he leaks it out because they want to do something. Again, who profits, right? So there's a story, and it's a continuing story that, again, like that the financials for AEW aren't real, they're not financially solvent, and whatnot. Now, there's a version of the story. There's a great thread by Alan Forel, Alan Cheap Shot, where he kind of explains it. And Alan and I actually like talked at one point about this. And because we both kind of say, look, there is a story here saying that, like, WB has a good relationship with AEW, and they know that the Paramount stuff is coming out. So it's entirely reasonable for them to say, hey, we can't guarantee the pickup because we're not going to be in charge in 2027. But this doesn't speak to the condition of how good AEW is or the programming is or how successful. It's just kind of giving them a heads up, hey, instead of like, because, also Tony has a good relationship with has had a good relationship with Salzlov and WB, and so they would probably just come to a handshake deal and do it. Whereas here he's saying, look, you kind of have to think about the possibility of having to take this out to bid, which is logical because he does, like, WB now can't speak for Paramount next year, right? They can't do it.
Yeah.
Right.
They don't know if they will take up the option. That's the thing.
And as I was saying to Doc off the air, if I was predicting something, I would not be shocked if Dave Soslab winds up back in Peacock and NBC, where he's from originally, right? And he gives Tony an offer, right? So
in comes Soslab with a big property right off the bat.
But again, this is I want to be clear. This is me forecasting, just because I kind of like this is me forecasting, right? But maybe I'll put a timestamp on and come back to it in here. But anyway,
we're just contemplating here. Bro,
because I don't want people to say that I said that. Like, no. I'm just kind of making. Okay. But the point being that, like, so Nick, whatever else he's coming out there because like somebody wants a story out there that like the financials for AEW are non-solvent and that their money isn't any good, right? And I'm like, who could possibly profit from this, right? And who could possibly profit that has a tendency to put these bullshit stories out to kind of help their agenda, and who is going through a PR crisis right now? And the answer is TKO and WWE. Like, and again, this isn't hard to kind of read. And like Dave is having to spend his time to kind of like, deny this stuff and do that. But like it gets it on the news cycle and it kind of covers up the other stuff that's going on. But I think even though it's bullshit, we kind of have to look at it because sometimes you have to like talk about like the bullshit and the mechanism, the things that people are doing, to kind of like explain it, right?
I mean, I just think, well, Aaron, I'll give you sorry real quick, but I just wanted to say,
go ahead.
Just want to say that, you know, I think the other bigger story here is that I think AEW fans are really dedicated to this company, and you have wrestling fans that went 20 years without another competitor on a national stage that could really compete. I think there's fear that this could all come crashing down at some point, and I think that at this point it's probably pretty ridiculous. But in this media environment, who knows what happens with anybody? But I think that the people take advantage of that, and they use the whip up attention, and it's people going, it's people acting like in character on their podcasts and all this. It's the grifter people, and to me, that's the bigger story. Is that not so much what somebody's saying; it's the fact that they're saying it, and this continues to be something that's popping up the news cycle on a regular basis. That there's always some leak that even I remember when I was talking to people at Warner Brothers about their contract, and they're telling me, this is how we value them. They're a top 5 show. I mean, I didn't think they were going to get anywhere the money that they did. I mean, they're a top 5. To get a top 5 show in primetime cable or TV is impossible anymore. And Dynamite is, and even when the ratings were bombed out, it was still hitting in the top 5.
Even when they took
the thing is,
put it on HBO, it still was hitting that on TV.
Yeah, it was still doing really well, and it's like even when the TBS was doing the playoffs last year, number 3 was always AEW, and I think what is just that. But while that's going on, you still have some people that are saying, "Oh my God, they're going to go out of business because such and such on their podcast that they're getting ready to crash and go out of business." Yeah. And it's like, okay, I'm literally hearing from Warner Brothers people, yeah, we're giving them 3 at least, and we're going to give them 160 to 200 million, which is the numbers I heard from the very beginning of this, and they're like, yeah, that's what our window is, and we know that that's within what Tony would like to get, and that this story is 2 years old, a year and a half old now. But I'm just saying is that even in the midst of that, you had people saying, yeah, they're going to, I mean, Bischoff's did the famous, the image on his stupid YouTube video, AEW will not be getting a TV deal. And then he says he didn't say that. And it's like, okay, well then why'd you leave the stupid quote on your YouTube video for 2 years?
Why is this the thumbnail for it? It's like, because we talked about this last time we came on about Conrad universe of playing this paranoia about, oh no, AEW is actually not doing this well, and like people benefiting off of that. And my question for you, dude, is like, because you post this stuff, right? And like it's not like you're basically saying like you support this thing. You're just posting what's out there. I want people to like read that. Like my friend here, he's not like really supporting this or that. He's just posting what's been posted. And people want to take a side on it.
It's unfortunate. Like likes, retweets, aggregations are not endorsements. They're not endorsements in wrestling. They're not endorsement in real news. Like for example, one of the big journalists that I follow, who also happens to be a AEW fan, is Aaron Rupar. If you know who he is,
yes,
he aggregates Donald Trump quotes every day. Does that make him a MAGA supporter, a Donald Trump supporter? Like, no, he's just tweeting what the fucking guy is saying. And like, that's what it is, right? And it's out there for you to discuss. And after aggregating Piccolo stuff, if you think this guy is genuine, cool. If you think he's on something, spewing bullshit, okay, cool. That's your prerogative. The information is out there for you to engage with.
Yeah, there's a lot. Like, there's a lot to unpack if you actually like go and look at the. I don't suggest it necessarily, but there's some really disturbing racial stuff. There's some really kind of weird behavior on there. It's a very kind of
the Will Washington discussion that they were having on there. That's so fucked up. Like you,
and unfortunately, in Will Washington's case, this isn't the first time. He often comes up in these kind of discussions because people don't think that he deserves the job that he ended up getting.
I will say this about the Will Washington thing is that when I heard people that he was getting the position he was getting, I knew people backstage were angry and people were questioning it because he did not have any actual wrestling business experience, and he seemed, I think his big podcast was Danielle Fisher from Boy Meets World. But I can tell you without a doubt the AEW people love him, and he's doing a really good job, and he's outlasted a lot of people that have been wrestling and doing similar roles for 20 years because Tony's such a high energy, person. And they got such a, and they're doing work every week. I know he's somebody they really enjoy like having there. So he's proved his worth, and it's stupid that this is still, I mean, and regardless of that, somebody's race shouldn't be coming in a part of it. And I saw this happen with backup Hangman today. He was taking a lot of racial abuse, and he even said, this is more than I normally get. And it's just, it's just, I don't know what it is that happened this week, but it's like, I don't know, maybe it's a full moon out or something. I don't know, but
I think BJ and I have talked about, I don't know if you and I have talked about this on the air, but there is kind of this feeling of resentment at kind of the way the executive suite in AEW looks, right? And that comes out. Yeah, there's women in prominent roles. There's kind of, and that happens too. But like, there's I suspect it's a much more varied kind of executive suite. And like, here's the thing: I'm Puerto Rican. I'm half Cuban. I enjoy my lucha, so I enjoy that the lucha I get from AEW or the wrestling I get from AEW is a more diverse product than like WWE is tended to be over history, right?
Also, Arturo, you're talking from the point of view
right.
as someone who was a person of color and an executive in a big company.
Well, I mean, I don't feel comfortable doing that because I'm like the whitest dude, like physically. I'm like European, like Spanish. I'm like Spanish Latino and like half Irish. So like I can pass. I can basically obviously jump into like and scare the hell out of like I have stories where like I've worked with like obreros that don't know I speak Spanish, and so they'll talk bullshit and like I'll be like, hey dudes, chico, oye, yo te entiendo, tú sabes, mi hermano, te entiendo. But I do see it like that. Like the thing I used to see a lot. But no, the thing I used to see a lot. So I've worked for Fortune 500 companies, and what would happen is I started working when I started my career. I started on the States, and I was like pretty high levels of exec. I come out to Puerto Rico, and all the execs on the island. I remember this one visit. I was working for a pharmaceutical company at the time, and I was like the one of the lead engineers. And my plant manager we were having the CEO of the company was coming to visit the site, and my plant manager was scared shitless, right? He was so nervous, he was not physically prepared. And I didn't understand it because I'm used to talking to these executives. So they had me, who was like the lead engineer, talk and tour with the executive council for the company, which I think I was probably like 24. I didn't realize it was a big deal, but I was like, I'm taking all the executives, talking to them just as equals, and like everybody in the plant. Again, they were freaked out because they were used to be treating as less, right? So it's like it is a thing where culturally that it just doesn't happen, and they just feel like there's an entitlement sense, really, right? And so I don't know. I mean, I do think that does play into some of these criticisms because why is he here, right?
I think that's absolutely true. Aaron, I want to ask you a question real quick. Is as when you're aggregating material like this, I mean, what kind of blowback are you getting blowback on any of this? Because you're saying you just want to put what's out there, and it's hard to get people to really understand. You're comparing Aaron Rupar, who I think everybody follows Aaron Rupar because basically even if you don't like Trump or you like Trump, and Rupar is pretty much anti-Trump. But it's like he just every interview he's on there. So I just wanted to ask you is like when you're doing your aggregating and stuff, is just like what are you seeing from people as far as like the racial hostility? Is this something that's you probably got a lot more followers than I do. I just want to know what you're seeing from wrestling fans as far as that goes.
I don't get much racial abuse because I don't think people know what my racial background is.
But do you see anything do you see anybody targeting other people, like performers that you may be retweeting or other people you may be retweeting or just comments they're making about companies? I mean, is there anything coming up in that way either? Or is it, is it pretty much, limited to what we've seen direct as, Arturo was talking about as far as, some of the stuff we've seen?
I think it depends on the topic. I think today it's been pretty much, focused on Nick as a personality, as someone who's deranged, as someone who's on something, tearing apart things that he said based on real examples. Like, okay, one thing that he said was about AEW doesn't pay people, but we have from tippy top sources that AEW does pay people, and it is a problem with people in WWE. Like, for example, on the topic of race, like the issue came with Swerve, right? How is this guy? He's getting paid above market value. What do you mean above market value? Market value is what you think you're worth and what someone's willing to pay you. If someone deems that you're worth $10 million, you're fucking worth $10 million.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Especially if you have the best
Well,
representation.
Swerve also is one of the people that's gone on live, and they said, "Well, was the pay better in this company or that company?" He says, "Absolutely, it's much better in AEW."
I would.
And the wrestlers talk about
this
this stuff.
Do you think that there's any black man that's gotten paid more for wrestling than Swerve?
The Rock.
Are we counting Rocky?
No. Well, like actually, like The Rock during his like bigger times. I mean, you kind of do a little bit, but
fair enough. Probably
I don't know what. See, I don't know what Booker T and Bobby Lashley.
I doubt either of those
or New Day.
I doubt either of those four acts that you mentioned probably made more than like.
I'm just saying there's a possibility.
I also doubt the New Day saw like
maybe Swerve. Maybe Mercedes makes more than Swerve, right? But that's kind of
Mercedes has to be tippy top.
And Mercedes, the whole history of her walking is kind of a whole thing. I'll say this about that, which is, we talked about this earlier. I mean, like, again, Barry Bloom is one of, if not the most legendary agent for wrestling ever. He was like Hulk Hogan's agent. If you think that Barry Bloom is letting his clients not get paid, you're completely and utterly insane, right? That's just like, it makes no sense. And not just that. I mean, like, again, it's you're talking about a guy who's an NFL owner. He's also a Premier League owner, and he's not just, again, I've mentioned this before. Like the cons are not just like your run of the mill NFL owners. They are kind of the NFL themselves consider like a sample franchise, and they're the face of the NFL's European expansion. Like the NFL like treats the cons as like high profile kind of.
Who was hanging out with Roger Goodell the other week? Who was hanging out with Roger Goodell?
Swerve Strickland.
Swerve's hanging out with Goodell multiple times. They really like him. The other part about that, like, and if you go to the Premier League, like they at one point they wanted to sell Wembley Stadium, and the ownership group that they wanted to buy it was Shad Khan. Now that fell through. But it tells you the Premier League and like the FA like consider Shad, again, also kind of like a top of the line guy that we trust with deep pockets that to be the face. Yeah. So like
you want to talk real money again? We're talking real money.
Yeah, we're talking about like look, they wanted him to buy Wembley Stadium, right? Like just And you're saying he's not paying?
And also like sorry to cut you off. The sports branch is small potatoes compared to like their main.
Flexing Gate. Flexing Gate
supplies car parts to fucking 2/3 of the cars in America. Like, like, I mean, like no one looks at that, right? Like AEW small potatoes.
That's the thing. I'm glad you brought that point up, because it's like the Jaguars are small potatoes compared to the automotive company that he founded, which Shad was an inventor. He invented the one-piece car bumper. I'm a gearhead, and that revolutionized car manufacturing. And that's their bread and butter. And they got factories all over the Midwest. That was founded in Illinois. He came here. He found it. He was first generation. Came over here from Pakistan. Started in a van in a little workshop, and then got a job at Flexing Gate where he invented it, and then he moved on from there. And it's like, this is somebody that they like. This is not only somebody that the NFL showcases, but it's somebody that the U.S. business community talks about when they go to other countries.
I'm gonna keep kayfabe here for a little bit, but hey, Air. Welcome to the longest running episodic Asian American ran podcast about pro wrestling, brother.
Oh God.
Good stuff.
I'm sorry you weren't here for the Chuck Norris stuff. It doesn't chop the mummy on fire, but I've been learning a lot about Lucha Libre. It's been great. But I think that the thing is that these guys know what they're doing. They know how to build stuff, and that's the thing. Is with Tony, if you watch AEW, he knows how to build something, and he understands the kind of historical fashions. And it's like the idea. It's like, this is, Arturo, to make your point. It's like, if these guys weren't getting paid real money, or they weren't getting the real money they're supposed to be getting marked in their deal, then why wouldn't WWE just swipe them? Because then they would be, if you're not getting paid, your contract's not being fulfilled. They could go out and call Kenny Omega or Hangman Adam Page or anybody on top of that card and say, hey, we'll give you 5, 6, 7 million. Come on over. And they would be there the next week. It's like,
Hey,
if that was the case, this would have happened.
hey, BJ. You know about the 90-day rollovers that they do with WWE contracts over all the time, right? Where they always renegotiate within the 90 days. They could like change what's in your contract
Yes.
without you like agreeing to it, like in principle. That is insane to me that they get away with this kind of stuff. And I'm
It's
sure,
because, like Arturo said, it gets back to the lack of a collective bargaining agreement, and also gets to hopefully if we can get Sonny on, he'll talk about this because he was part of probably the most successful lawsuit against wrestling companies on far as independent contractor status.
BJ, spoilers.
Okay, but I'm just saying is just that this goes back to bad independent contractor law, and also goes to just they got to have a union, and then that's the thing is, and I think with TKO, I think the fighters and the wrestlers should look at something together, because right now they're getting billions from Paramount and ESPN, they're getting billions from Netflix. If they don't do something now, they will never have the opportunity, and it's
Hey,
simple.
DJ.
Yeah.
When TKO, when UFC was first building up their thing, and they were talking about divesting and doing all this stuff, who were the first guys they got rid of? They got rid of Conor McGregor, they got rid of John Bones Jones, they got rid of Ronda Rousey, all like around 2018. I know John Bones Jones came back a little bit. I know GSP came back for like a fight or two. But they no longer have those guys as the draws for the company, and they never built anybody to replace them. I do love Jao Pereira. I do love, I do love some fighters there, but nobody is on the level of a GSP or a John Bones Jones or even like a not.
I mean, you
they
don't think
even have-
Sean Strickland?
yeah.
You don't think Sean Strickland's the overall quality
yeah.
across demographic draw that could really draw at UFC? I mean,
Sean
the white
Strickland calling
nationalist
everybody
guy.
the F words and
Yeah,
doing
it's like,
that, and then
I mean, their demographic for UFC seems to only care about drawing right now is Donald Trump. I mean, I don't really know anything other about what they're trying to do, and it's the same thing. The thing that's interesting to me, and I think this is what Arturo is talking about as far as like we talk about this. Okay, what's quarter two going to look like? What's quarter two going to look like? Last year, I think 2 years ago or a year ago, they only had maybe, their net profit was not very much, even after that huge year WWE had. Last year, WWE outdrew UFC. So now that they got these huge $1 billion TV deals with Paramount and ESPN, if they come into quarter two, if they're showing cash problems, what's that going to look at down the road? If they're carrying that much debt, if they're having that much problem, if they're that much extended, and it's like, where's that problem at? It's like, where are they spending that money? And obviously, it's the C-suite. And I think that's the thing to really keep an eye on, because it's like, they're not going to make any more money than this. You know what I'm saying? They got more money in God now.
I threw this out when I've been throwing this out for a while, because one of the things, the smart things that Vince did was Vince had he'd move all the revenue from what we call customer to business revenue. And what that means, so WWE didn't depend on your ticket dollar directly. They basically moved it so the revenue is coming from other businesses. So the TV contracts, the Saudi deals, the site fees was the majority of the revenue. And what that means is that they were insulated from the variations of economics and insulated from the variations of the business, because the contracts are fixed. So you get a 5-year contract. And if the business is going up or down, you're not seeing the effect on the bottom line, which really kind of does protect the wrestlers, right? Indirectly, that wasn't the intention. It does protect the bottom lines. But now with TKO, the problem is you introduce the debt loop. And the debt loop doesn't really depend necessarily just on WWE, because, as you're saying, if UFC is doing terrible, right, you still have to hit these earning targets, right? You have to hit the number, because if you don't hit the number, you have to service your debt, because you're paying interest on that debt. You got to service it.
They're
And
also
effectively,
having
the problem is
problems. They're also having problems getting sanctioning for the Zuffa box.
Because essentially, they're going to do the same thing they did with UFC, which is
Yeah.
they're going to cut the player salaries, because the players are not unionized and they have leverage over the players, which is one of the reasons they hate AEW, is because AEW reduces the leverage they have over the players, right, or over the wrestlers. And this is kind of like this is why UFC like hated Pride and the other promotions, because if you don't have a monopoly, then people have leverage. You can't just go to like hypothetically someone like, I don't know, let me pick a name out of the hat. Like somebody's talking about, oh, can you get Seth Rollins to take 50% pay cut? Probably not, because you can probably walk and get a job in AEW or do something else where like you don't really have as much leverage.
Everyone keeps putting his name up. I don't know why.
Well, no, people brought it up, and I'm like, but I want to address.
They just assumed like Seth's this happens.
Oh no,
be
because
like, I'm happy to be here. Sure, take 60%. I mean, I don't think.
I mean, like he's not like somebody like maybe like Johnny Gargano or something, or like the joke going around with Johnny was like that he was like basically going to walk into like the office and request pay cut.
Arturo, Arturo, what was the interview? Whose wife was being interviewed, and then that interview got wiped from the internet? Whose wife was being interviewed?
I don't know.
It was Seth Rollins. It was Becky Lynch talking about paying for their hotels and travel, and how they don't really make that much.
Wait, that interview got wiped?
Yeah, a little.
That wasn't that on Andrew Schultz? They took all that off. Yeah. Was it Andrew or was it Mac?
I'm not sure
she was doing.
Who it was.
Wow,
I can't find it.
I've had this.
It was with the actor. Forget the
thing with the.
You got the name, Eric?
Hold on, let me look it up. I know I tweeted it.
Yeah. See, this is why he's the chief. This is why he's the best wrestling aggregator on Twitter. He's got everything.
I'm infamous. Hey, I don't know the best.
You're on the infamous podcast, bud. You're in the right place.
Oh, okay, good stuff.
Yeah. Everybody I bring on here is always a hitter, bro. I mean,
you don't. I think the thing about that is that, I mean, essentially, it's one of these things where, like, the fact that they're not paying. I always remember the Bailey interview on, I think it was Fox Business, where they're like, the reporter was surprised that Bailey had to pay for her own like travel. She's like, she basically was like gonna have Bailey call her union rep because she didn't realize she wasn't SAG, right? And when I say SAG, guys, I mean Screen Actor Guild, right? And there's actually there's people in wrestling who are SAG members because they get the benefits from the SAG card. They get like the medical insurance and the retirement. I know. Jericho's a member, and like Joe's probably a member.
Max,
Jericho,
Max is definitely a member. And because effectively the unions one of the things they do is they guarantee protections on that. And I think I don't know if we haven't talked about this before. One of the reasons that the unions happened in sports, right, was the medical costs, right, and the fact that the retirement, the people who were getting squeezed were the veterans who retired, who had a lot of medical costs, weren't getting taken care of, and so the pensions and the medical for MLB and for basketball and for football were the big issues. That's eventually what got it done.
Yeah.
And I suspect that Vince was famous for being a guy who took care of some of the vets, right? Vince would.
Legends.
I think Vince kind of knew that he needed to take care of the vets, because if he didn't take care of the vets, he was going to get the exact same thing that happened to the other sports. And I think that TKO was not going to take care of the vets. And I think that I kind of see that. That's where we're going to get to a point where I think it's going to break, because they're just not going to be able to help themselves screen people, right? The trick is the longer you wait, the less leverage you're going to have, right? I think that was the point the BJ was making. Right?
Yeah. Yes. It's now you got leverage, because if you walk out now in the middle of the beginning of this deal, you do it both UFC, you do it with the UFC's roster and WWE's roster, which my expectations of this happening are 100% not happening. But I'm just saying, this would be the time to do something, because if they're forcing pay cuts, this is your chance to say, screw them, we're going to walk.
If people like stories, and I know wrestling fans and wrestlers like stories, I would suggest that you look up Bill Russell, the All-Star Game, and the birth of the NBA Players Union. And I'm not going to get into it, but you can look it up. It's a great story. And how that happened. And in St. Louis, by the way, I believe it was in St. Louis that it happened. You can look up how that came about and how effectively the players kind of used their leverage over, a live event that was happening on TV, and use that as a way to get some. They get some benefits and get people on the table and negotiate. Because
Arturo,
the thing is,
Arturo, bro, you've watched Kevin Nash shoot interviews, right?
Yes.
Where he does an impression of James J. Dillon, where James J. Dillon is like, they're talking, Vince. The boys are talking to each other. Because
Yes.
Shawn Michaels told Kevin Nash how much he was being paid. They talked to Razor, so then they were all talk to each other about like getting fair pay. And then, you know, Lex Luger was one of the guys that got the guarantees done for WCW and like sold, and that sold a lot of guys on going to WCW was that guarantee. And I think that a lot of the times
By the way,
we have these conversations.
It's an ironic point that you bring up because effectively what TKO is doing is TKO is fucking with the guaranteed money. That's what they're doing,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, that's the
This
big
is-
thing.
yeah.
And the
This is-
downsides, apparently, if they're
Well,
really
they-
going
they
after
were-
this much, they got to hit the downside.
I believe Jonathan Coachman was talking about this. This is what people pissed people off because essentially, like, money didn't used to be guaranteed, and then it was, and then like Tony is famous for honoring his contracts, right, to the letter. And what's happening now is essentially like TKO is forcing. It's essentially they're being a little bit more like the NFL, like they give you this number, but the number isn't real, right? And they're using all sorts of tricks to mess with people's guaranteed money. Is what they're doing. That's what's really happening. And this is what's going to like annoy. This is what's pissing people off, right?
They're selling you a dream, man. They're selling you opportunity here.
Well, I mean, like
WrestleMania
if you,
moment.
like Doc, on a purely hypothetical basis, right? If you were counting on a certain amount of money to come in so you could pay off the mortgage on a really expensive California house, right? I'm not going to say where. It could be a problem if the company says like, "Hey, we'll cut you," and if you've already kind of like nuked the bridge to the other employer, then yeah, I mean you might be in a position where you kind of need to negotiate or take a pay cut, right?
And I think that's when you would like tell some of your friends to send some feelers out there online to see what the reaction would be. And I think like if you can make the conversation around you, you could try to leverage that as like, look, there's so much of this talk around me. Why would you want to let me go? It seems like a good strategy.
You know what? I'm gonna break kayfabe here. It's like we're talking about Punk a little bit, and because I was having an interesting conversation about this, like because like from one of the other sites I was on, and because I said, hey, Punk could be a person who doesn't have a lot of leverage in the situation, be asking for a pay cut, and somebody was saying like, well, no, they could just bring Punk back to AEW, and I'm like, wasn't he fired on the air publicly after an investigation? See, here's the thing with the Punk. No, but here's the thing with the Punk thing, right? So it wasn't just it wasn't just Tony firing him. It was basically there was a whole bureaucracy around firing him. They had to do an internal investigation. Lawyers were involved. People were basically suspended. Some people were moved and like demoted. So if you wanted to bring Punk back to AEW, it's not as simple as Tony saying, I want to bring Punk back to AEW. There's a lot of moving parts that have to happen even before we get into the personality conflicts, right? This is
absolutely
like the kind of lawyers that were involved in this mean that would not be like friction free, right? You can't. I mean, obviously it's a private company, but it involves Shad's company too. Like what I mean, like the hire company. So I would push back and say that like it isn't as simple. That particular case, if you really wanted to go back, there's things that would have to happen and things you would need like that before that could happen. It's not as realistic as somebody else kind of walking, right? If that kind of makes sense to everyone. So like when I say leverage, it means that like if I have a big TV deal and I'm doing a show, or if I could walk and get a deal in, like we're talking about somebody else was like Sami Zayn. I'm like Sami Zayn could walk into AEW and probably get an AEW world title program within 6 months, right?
Yeah,
because like he's respected and he's got a lot of friends there. But there
Kevin
are guys
Steen could walk in and get a title shot right away.
Yeah,
and no one would bat an eye.
Yeah, I mean, if you can still kind of go, but like maybe somebody like Penta, who's been somewhat kind of negative towards AEW before, would have a harder time, right?
Yeah.
And again, I bring him up because he famous, like not Penta, but like Phoenix. Phoenix put out that photo with him in the straight jacket, with people didn't like. So
Inhumane.
He like this is, you gotta be careful, guys, when you like this is like you have to be like Andrade. Don't burn bridges, guys, when you leave, right? You want to be kind of like treat people well and not burn bridges in this kind of like situation. This is advice it's good in any work situation.
Yeah, that's advice coming from a real Latino man right there.
Yeah. Do we want to talk to Taco a little bit or no?
I have to
sure.
get going. Hey, I have to get going, guys. But hey,
Oh.
Air, sorry I couldn't hang around longer. It's nice having you on. And hey, guys, yeah, I'll be back with you later this week if you can. Larry, I'm sorry about your aunt. I hope she gets feeling better. Okay.
Yeah, bro. Definitely.
Keep me abreast. And Arturo, if you start coming up with numbers for that article, let me know.
Yeah, I mean, like some people are
I
like,
think
we're gonna work on it. I've done this. We're gonna put some numbers together because I think it's a really interesting story to tell. And
I'd like to run it at SE Scoops if I can either do it like I'm interviewing you, or I could give you a co-byline or something.
Yeah,
just think about what you think would be best. Okay.
Yeah, I think the trick with this is we want to lay out the story because I think the story is powerful. Because I think the idea, again, I think what people don't like really gotta understand it. If you're a wrestler or somebody from the bottom up, it's like, what is this costing you, right?
Yeah.
What am I surrendering?
Oh, I can lay the sketch. I'll take care of the story. I'll make it.
We'll figure it out. But I think that
I'll take care of that part. But you give me the numbers, I'll make it.
Yeah.
You know, I'll be able to get the full picture out there. But yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for having. I'm a part of the crew. I don't know why I'm saying thanks for having me back on. I don't know, 3 times a week. But it tells you how tired I am from working too many jobs. But guys, let's talk to Air. Hope I'll be seeing you on Twitter, bud. Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah,
Have a good one.
Thank you, BJ, man. Again, go to BJ Bethel tweets on X. Go to bbethel at .substack.com to read his news articles. Go to SE Scoops because BJ is at SE Scoops. Gets all the good scoops. He's also covering this story on the American Idol murders, which is very heartbreaking story. But read all that stuff. Thank you, BJ. Again, you are our third stooge here. I know people like calling us stooges, Arturo. I just found that out.
Well, because we talked about the Three Stooges, and we did the whole thing with the Stooges, and it was the thing. We watched we watched this thing. We watched the Stooges wrestling at Olympic. It's a great you've probably seen the Three Stooges, and he hears the music, the Pop Goes the Weasel music. And he basically gets this energy so he can box with the world champ, and it's the whole thing. We watched that. It's a really cool thing. And apparently it kind of stuck because we were talking about it, right? So,
yeah. So
and now
Air man, I just wanted to thank you for coming on here, man. And I know you don't do this. I know you're a really private person, and I'm just gonna break a little bit of kayfabe here. Air's been my friend for a couple of years now. And every time we posted and talk, he's always been one of the coolest dudes to me, and always a good talk, a smart guy, real smart guy. Thank you for coming on here, man. I know it takes a lot for you to come on because you're very private, and you like it like that. So thank you so much for that, man.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Doc. You always ask, you're very persistent. I always end up saying no, but here we are.
Yeah.
I think hopefully you enjoyed it because I thought it was I actually thought this was good today. It was very good today. Who's there?
Thanks, Air. Thanks to Air for coming on. You can follow Air at Airgold on X. Great guy. Surprised you with that run in, huh? Surprised you with that run in, brother.
Did we have anything else I want to cover, man?
Okay, we'll just do a little bit of a Backlash preview. So you think Jacob or Roman's going to win?
I am now much more interested in the Backlash resort because I do think there's a real chance that Roman wants to put his after seeing that segment, after seeing that hey, maybe Roman wants to make the next Adeline. Maybe he just wants to put him over. There's something home, so he might as well just put him over, right? But it's definitely Roman's call at this point, right?
Yeah. We definitely don't know who is gonna. And then also the other match that's been announced is Cody versus Gunther.
Okay. What do you think on that one? I don't know, man.
I think.
I think Gunther has to win, right? It just feels like
if you put the belt on Gunther, it's a great surprise win, and nobody would expect it, and Cody.
Let me say, I think what was going to happen, unless it was that Randy was supposed to win, right?
Yeah.
And I think Randy was supposed to win, and we were going to work. He was probably going to maybe work Gunther all the way to SummerSlam, maybe. And essentially, like when we've seen this before, where like they do the switch on the hell they're going to do, but they stick to whatever the hell the program is going to be. So like I think we may be seeing whatever the hell the program is supposed to be with Randy, right? Logistically, I mean, I think what they're going to probably do is they're going to have Gunther beat Randy, and then Randy can challenge him for the record and like career versus record at SummerSlam. I think how many title wins does Randy have?
He has about 14.
I think he has 14. What's the record? 16?
17. Never seen 17. You know, I'm doing the John Cena bit right now.
WWE record for most championships is 17. And I think Randy, how many does Randy have? Randy Orton World. I know he's close, right? So like Cena's at 17, Flair's at 16, Randy's at 14, right? So I mean he could like essentially he could like if you'd done the whole thing where you like won then like if you'd done the whole thing where like you won, you could have like won it then like maybe lost it to Gunther and then maybe gone for the 16th to tie Flair at like SummerSlam, right?
Dude, and then there's nothing else announced besides a Danhausen match where he has a secret partner versus Miz and Kit Wilson.
Are we doing house keys, you think?
Maybe it's house keys, maybe it's Obahausen.
Obahausen.
Maybe I don't know who they got for him. The funniest thing would probably be maybe Hendryhausen.
Oh, you know what? You mentioned Powerhouse House, so I think we probably should bring it up. There was I know there was a discussion. We were talking about like how kind of a bunch of people had gone over to WWE, taking from AEW, taking a pay cut. It came up about there's confusion about Powerhouse
because he had a big offer from AEW.
Well, no, I think so. I think the thing with Powerhouse, to be clear, because I know a couple of people I think we were talking to Trish and Sarah. We had a conversation around that. I want to kind of clear the air because effectively, I think both sides were right because effectively, so Powerhouse was making X amount of money in AEW. Both the WWE and AEW offer were probably higher than his AEW offer, and we think, and again, Dave couldn't confirm or deny that the AEW offer was probably higher than, but we don't know. Like he might have gotten that. But effectively, if he did get a WWE offer that matches the AEW offer that he got, he probably is in the very, very high tier, which is a really interesting spot to be.
We do know that he also negotiated to not go to NXT.
Right.
That was a big part of his negotiations. I like Powerhouse House. Hoist Keys. I'm calling him Hoist because and I hope nothing but the best for him. They announced, we didn't bring it up at all, but John Cena once again announced his return to WWE as a host with a big announcement. We're speculating it's probably about Club WWE. And man.
You don't think he's going to have one more match?
One more match. It's possible.
One more match. No, I don't think so. It is kind of funny that he keeps going. How can we miss you but never go away, man?
And I'm just gonna stop this right here. This is one half, or probably the end, or probably State of Wrestling for this week. We might come back on another day on this, but I just want to say thank you to our guest for coming on here. Thank you for Airgold for coming on here. He doesn't usually do I don't think he's ever done a podcast, and getting someone who does aggregation to come on here and sort of explain what they do, which is the stupidest thing. If you don't get what he's doing, I don't know what's wrong with you. And BJ is always a pleasure to have here, our third guy.
Yeah, I think
the third man.
I think I'll say about this is the thing you're doing essentially with aggregation is Henry Abbott is one of my mentors, and Henry Abbott used to put together the hoops aggregation for ESPN. He had a page. He put all the news together in one ready available column, so all the gear, all the hoop heads could just read that. And Henry Abbott was really nice to me when I was writing. He would put my stuff on and share with my stuff. So shout out to Henry. He has his own Substack now. But yeah, I mean, like that's kind of like what you do. You essentially now in the stage where like it's nobody really kind of does that. You have somebody you trust to put the news together that you follow, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
as long as they, to me, like as long as they they respect paywalls and link back to the people who are like putting the stuff up, then yeah, we're good, right? That's
Yeah.
kind of what you do. Shout out to people and link them.
So I'm gonna say, either see you on the other side for the other half of this when BJ joins us back again, or see you next time, because this is the end of the show. Thank you, Arturo, man. Gotta say, man, pretty fun show. Just coming off the rip.
Yeah.
And if you're hearing this now, you probably heard our show on Cinco de Mayo, with Orlando Jimenez Ruiz, talking about lucha libre, origins of lucha libre, his story of coming up in research and talking about the history, his love of El Santo. You're gonna hear him, and pretty much him and Arturo have a deep discussion on the Espantos that I think is very interesting. I
there's some
try
stuff
my
on
best
that.
to
There's
speak
some stuff.
Spanish.
There's some stuff on like 50s lucha, which is kind of cool. There's some stuff on like this. We talk. There's some stuff about like there's just really a lot of really cool stuff on that.
Yeah.
And again, like
And once
I tell people, like translations are getting better. You can find it, get a translation, and you'll enjoy it. Trust me.
So it's gonna be it was in Spanish.
Mhm.
So I hope, like, if you speak Spanish, gracias para todos. But if you don't speak Spanish, like Arturo said, you can listen through YouTube. They have captions there. You can listen on Spotify. There is captions there. Whatever the podcast gimmick that you use. Damn, I use gimmick. Am I turning into Steve Austin? They
Gimmick,
have
baby.
like transcripts that you could have the transcripts translated. Technology is there. Arturo, it's about to be Cinco de Mayo. After today, you got something for the people out there?
It is Cinco de Mayo right now. Like, no, felicidades entonces, Cinco de Mayo. Happy Cinco.
I just got some fireworks launched right now, right as you said that, brother. So people in my neighborhood are celebrating. So once again, thank you guys so much for coming on, listen to us, and if you're gonna listen to the other half of this, listen to the other half. Thank
Well,
you
as
guys
I said,
so
like
much.
I mentioned my NBA model won another 4-1 bet. Right? If you just keep trailing,
Go.
baby.
He has a PayPal on his X account, on his Twitter account. Make a donation to a free service, man. He's helped a lot of cats and kittens out there. So thank you guys very much.
You're about to listen to a conversation between me and Jeremy Feinstone of Speaking of Strong Style, which you can hear on the Fight Game Media Network every Thursday. Join them live at 2:30 p.m. I believe Pacific time, 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. This is Speaking of Strong Styles. Jeremy Feinstone joining us for a discussion on New Japan Pro Wrestling. And I'm gonna talk about this. So when they go into Dominion, we're talking big time here. We're talking broadcast terrestrial television. I do not know if really Callum Newman is the guy for that. And I know that Japan really does love having these young prodigies be like in the forefront because there's an interest in like, oh, there's this guy who's like so young but he's so great. Like, and Callum Newman is really good and he's also very young, but I don't know if he's like that engaging to bring the Japanese populace to watch this show. I'm not sure if he's the guy for that.
I don't think he's the mechanism to get the Japanese audience.
Yeah. And we were talking about this because like there was this real palpable excitement among the Japanese audience. And I talked to a lot of guys who actually live in Japan and they were talking about all this stuff, and it's just like it just felt like a weird zig when they didn't need to zig, when they could have just stayed the path with a guy who was having this interest from the domestic audience. But we always have to like think about, oh, what if we can get Will Ospreay? And I know a lot of like the Western fans are like,
Will Ospreay, AEW, this partnership is so great. And I brought you here, man, because I also wanted to talk partnerships, All Japan,
Okay.
with New Japan, right?
Mm-hmm.
So over the weekend, there was also this show with MLW and CMLL, right? And they either had a sellout or a near sellout for that show.
Okay.
The New Japan contracted talent, the AEW contracted talent, the double contracted people, they were not on the show. I do believe that Claudio was on the show, and there was another AEW wrestler, but I don't think they had like Hechicero. I don't believe they had
Well, Claudio's a dual
Dorada.
contracted talent.
What's that?
Claudio's a dual contracted talent.
Yeah, but I mean like the
But not
lucha
in New
league.
Japan, you meant.
Yeah.
I
So
see.
so like having like this kind of partnership with CMLL where they brought in the MLW talent and they're able to do like a big sellout compared to the other weeks when they didn't have like that many big talents. And here they did a great show without having Mystical available for the show because he's in Japan. And then we talk about, a lot of this stuff with Death Rider Billy, as coined by Callum Newman, with the AEW partnership. And of course, we see like, people said, oh, why are all these AEW talents and they're counting Mystico in that roundup winning these New Japan belts? That's so detrimental for New Japan. And I can see it like that. And I also, also we got Takeshita as a TV champ. But, Takeshita is a triple contracted guy. There's a way to use these guys, but like we know that this partnership is sort of like skewed in one way. But how do you take this partnership with AEW and New Japan? Because like I see the partnership that New Japan, MLW, CMLL, RevPro, like it seems a lot more like beneficial to New Japan for some of these other places. And I know that it's great to have like New Japan get these paydays from New Japan talent to get the paydays from AEW. But like what has been the cost benefit for the AEW partnership in New Japan for you? I know you cover New Japan. Has there been like a benefit to this AEW partnership?
A benefit to New Japan or a
Yeah.
benefit to each other?
A benefit to each other and a benefit to New Japan.
I mean, AEW has greatly benefited from the pipeline of talent that has been made available to them with
Finlay.
the realization that Bushiroad and New Japan simply do not have the budget, the money, or the means to offer competitive salaries to people who are looking at the promotions in the United States and what they can offer them monetarily and setting up their family and all that. At the end of the day, these are all workers who are looking to make as much money in their career as possible. And New Japan was a pipeline to WWE before it was a pipeline to AEW. They were talking about whether the Bucks and Kenny Omega and Hangman Page were going to go to WWE when AEW were whispers. So it's not like AEW is suddenly doing something that had never been done before. Nakamura left and he went to WWE. This is the way of the big fish eats the small fish in like the ecosystem of pro wrestling. And to fundamentally not understand that New Japan is not a big fish and that their economy is absolutely in the shitter and that the money that they're making, couple of big shows help the budget through, but they do not have a budget that is wide and varying and able to bring in all the people that they can. Andrade made the deal with them before it became clear that WWE was going to ease off with the lawyer talk and allow him to actually wrestle in the States. Basically what happened there. And he's been a great bonus. I really enjoyed that match that they did in New Jersey for New Beginnings in the USA earlier this year. And him being the break glass in case of emergency when Gabe Kidd couldn't go and David Finlay declined for entirely respectful reasons. he really came through. And if it wasn't for that AEW arrangement, these cards would not be what they are now, because the roster that New Japan is offering right now is only as good as they make it. And they're the ones that are not building up their own guys. They're the ones that are reliant on these AEW guys, supposedly, for these feuds to get these guys up to the next level.
Yeah.
And that is purely on the responsibility of the New Japan guys. Tony Khan has a business to run. Tony Khan does a great job running AEW. And, you know, there are probably skeletons in his closet. There are probably things that he does that make one person mad and another person happy, and then something else that makes another person mad and another person happy. But he is, in fact, a net positive for pro wrestling. And so when I look at the relationship between the two, I think New Japan is incredibly lucky to have AEW in their back pocket for scenarios like this. I think portraying the two as adversaries to the audience is in everybody's best interest, where it is constantly a war back and forth, where AEW guys don't like New Japan and New Japan don't like AEW, and going into Forbidden Door, that needs to be the energy where it's actually like a fight. But going into Forbidden Door, I don't see more than like a half a dozen New Japan guys like coming to the States, because all of them are going to have to come back to the States a week later to do the G1 match, and there are a bunch of these guys that don't even like flying to the States for one time, let alone two. So are we going to see Desperado and Yuya Uemura and Yota Tsuji and Shota Umino, all like half a dozen of the top guys, Knockout Brothers? I'd love to see Knockout Brothers versus Young Bucks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that would be a dream match, and this is exactly the reason that you would want to do that. But I don't like what benefit. Like, it's good for right now. Okay, like these matches are all good for right now. But how does this get New Japan sustainable? And when those AEW guys are gone, what is left that you truly care about?
Yeah, because at the beginning of the year, I was even more excited for more Takeshita Tsuji, like, going forward. Like, Takeshita building his way back up to get the rematch. And now Takeshita's doing the TV title match versus Chase Owens. And, you know, we talk about
And
Forbidden
now
Door.
Sonata's back.
Now
Sonata's great. But
I love Sonata.
Takeshita versus Sonata does not get your blood pumping.
No, like, this return for Sonata was really cool. It looked really cool visually.
Happy for him.
The crowd cheered him when he showed up and hit his what's he call that move? Death something. But like I'm a big fan of that. They'll probably have a really good match, but you know, it's what it is. There was all this talk about him actually being finished as a wrestler. So to see him back now, I'm very happy for the guy.
Yeah. It appeared that the idea of how bad his neck injury was, I don't think he'll ever be what he was at one point, but there are plenty of guys who are working with limitations in New Japan that are able to sustain a long-running career, and I think Sonata can easily fit in that category, and he seems to be a company guy both in front of and behind the scenes for the company, and I think this is a net positive.
I kind of see him joining, dumping House of Torture and joining United Empire. Honestly, it feels like United Empire would be a place for him.
Could be.
You know, since I have you here and you just brought up Forbidden Door, I think for Forbidden Door, if AEW really wants to make a dent in California for San Jose, they really need to book more CMLL guys. They really need to announce Mystico as soon as possible for that show.
Oh, yeah, I assumed that it was... That's why they're only going to be like a half a dozen New Japan guys, because in addition to the matches that they're already going to have, they need to get Stardom matches on there, and they're going to need to get CMLL matches on there. Yeah. So, you know, Mystico, Master Dorada, Hechicero, all those guys are going to be on there. Then you're going to have like the half a dozen New Japan guys, including a pre-show match in which a bunch of them there. I wouldn't be surprised if you had the Dogs fighting somebody from New Japan and just kind of reminding people like, yeah, these guys don't like each other still.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh. Yeah, absolutely.
They have stuff to do. Maybe Anarchy in the Arena in
Possibly.
July, in June.
That'd be
like
fun.
You could do Death Riders and United Empire even more than Clash in Calgary or whatever that was.
Yeah, yeah. I think they could. That'd be very interesting. Although sucks for Jake Lee not being able to leave the country, but you could bring all the other guys from United Empire to like really get their licks in. Jordan,
I don't expect the IWGP title to be put on the line at Forbidden Door, but I expect the global title to be one of the top matches for the New Japan side.
Absolutely. Joining me here is my partner for Deathmatch Royalty, Matt Dawson. I know you're from the UK, man. I got a question for you. How do you feel about Callum Newman as the IWGP champion?
Well, I don't think it's going to be a long reign. I do think we are going to potentially get the fact that Will Ospreay is probably going to beat him for the title at some point, and we're going to get a little bit of a reign with Ospreay, maybe as double champion in New Japan and AEW, given the way things are going.
That's interesting.
So, as long as it is like a transitional thing, then that's fine. He's doing all right as the dickhead heel, though. I will give him that. That whole bit at the end of Don Taku, where he basically went, "Oi, Death Rider Billy Boy, come on now," and then was like, "Okay, fuck it, I'll give him the hidden blade." Happy now. That was pretty good.
I do have this scenario, and like because there's a reason about a Forbidden Door and all this mixing. If Callum Newman does end up beating Tsuji and Shingo, who would be his challenger? I like it's either gonna be, for me, it's like you either do an Ospreay, or they can bring in Moxley for the full AEW.
Well, Ospreay won't be at Dominion.
Yeah.
It
could probably be Moxley then challenging for the title. That makes me so mad. But yeah, Jeremy, I want to think
they're gonna put Moxley anywhere that.
No, I'm just wondering who they would put in that spot. Like if Callum wins, like who is there?
Yuya?
Yuya?
Yeah.
You think so?
He's the only guy.
I guess. I guess.
I mean, Shota's tied up in the global title, right? And Bolton just lost a never match. You're running out of guys. Shingo lost. El Phantasmo is nowhere to be seen. I mean, and if Will's not going to be at Dominion, it's kind of Yuya to me.
Which, man, imagine Yuya. I like Yuya, right? I like him a lot. He's not ready.
Well, it's interesting because that was the New Japan Cup final. And if you were to turn it around and have Yuya win the match here and then win the title off of Callum, there's a little bit of synchronicity there, like there's a mirror there, and it would theoretically get you to a main event Wrestle Kingdom of what I've wanted, which is Yuya versus Yoda, except Yoda would be the challenger for winning the G1, and it would be Yuya and Yoda in the showdown at Wrestle Kingdom. You could go that route, but this is all just workshopping, just a blind shot in the dark guess of who could be the challenger if the tag match goes sideways for Unbound Company tomorrow at Ignition to Dominion or whatever it's called.
Yeah, and I want to thank you, Jeremy, for being this first part of this huge review show that we're doing for like the next couple things. So you guys are going to hear whatever we review. I'm not sure exactly right now what we're reviewing on the rest of the show, but you're definitely going to hear a WrestleMania review. And you're definitely going to hear the Backlash review. So, yeah, WWE fans, I'm going to review another WWE show for you. So you're getting double WWE on this show. Thank you, Jeremy, for coming on. Speaking of Strong Style Thursdays, come on, let's sell your show, brother.
So every Thursday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, you can show up at the Fight Game Media YouTube channel, and Speak of Strong Style will be live with myself and one Stephen Conway. We will talk about whatever happened in New Japan that week, whatever happened on X, whatever happened on the show, whatever happened in the rumor mills. We'll touch on it, tell you if it's news or noise, tell you all about the Dontaku show, this upcoming show that we got here, and basically preview Best of Super Juniors, talk about the whole gamut, all 20 guys. I think Fujita's going to win the whole thing, blah, 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 blah. It's a fun show. We just sit there. If you ever go to a comic book store or you ever go to a hobby shop and there's a guy behind the counter and there are people just show up and just talk shop at the front counter, that's the vibe, guys. We just go in, we talk shop about New Japan, we try and get out of there in 90 minutes.
Absolutely. I want to thank you, Jeremy, for coming on this show. It's been really great to talk with you, man. Having you on here. Thank you for joining us for this little bit you were on here, Matt. Absolutely love talking New Japan with you, Jeremy. And every time you come on here, I fall a little bit more for you, man. As seeing all those great toys behind you, I'm so jealous. But yeah, man, listen to Speaking of Strong Style every Thursday. Watch him on the Fight Game Network. He's also available on X, so follow him on there. Give this guy a follow. He's a great dude. Thanks, Jeremy.
Appreciate you, Larry. I'll be back whenever you want. Matt, we didn't get a chance to chat much, but I hope we get a chance to chat in the future. I hope you both take care of yourselves.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, this is a really big, long edition of State of Wrestling. What you just heard was Jeremy Finestone and me talking about the current New Japan Pro Wrestling, different partnerships they had, and our thoughts on what's going to be upcoming for Forbidden Door and pro wrestling in the state of California. So, thank you, Jeremy, for that. Joining us here on the back end, the main event of the main event of the main event. We are all Sunday night ends here. ENDS, I gotta say that, ENDS ends, okay? And that is gonna be BJ and Arturo are back here. But joining us is, of course, our fourth stooge here, Tay. What's up, Tay?
What's up, guys? Always fun to be here. Excited to get into whatever's left to cover here.
Yeah, so the interesting part on this was yesterday or the day before or wherever we talked first was we were talking about these contracts and these 50% pay cuts being offered. The big news was that somebody took it, and I'm not gonna give credence to the rumors out there of who did take it, but there was a real interesting clip on the coaches on a podcast with Coach and Mark Henry. Yeah. On Mark Henry's podcast where they talked about the New Day leaving. I thought that was really excellent work for those two, because if you don't value me, why should I stay?
And I think that the key point on that was that, and I think we were talking about it the last time we reported on this, and also we've been talking about it for this month, which is, I think the big thing that people aren't covering is the fact that TKO is fucking with the guaranteed money, right? And this is a big deal because for 30 years, going back to when WCW started doing it, wrestlers have had guaranteed money with downsides. And so you signed a contract, and that was your contract, your downside guarantee. Even if you got sent home, you could basically essentially plan around the money that you had on your downside, right? And now they're fucking with that, right? And there's some other pretty disturbing rumors we've heard in terms of other money that's been available as a regular benefit that may not be available anymore. Some of the promotional work that people talk about. There's some noise about merch. But again, that's noise. I don't know that for certain. But there's some effectively, TKO is basically squeezing them, right?
Yeah.
And they're...
I would be remiss, but we are also referring to the bucket
That was with Maven's YouTube channel, where he talked with Eminem Collection of AEW about how they were making money in WWE and it was all based on downside. And if you ever got out of the bucket, you're making more than the downside. And WWE would always make it sure that you're not making out of the bucket.
Well, I mean,
And
I think I mentioned that like it was pretty telling that they didn't put the Andre on WrestleMania because by having the Andre on SmackDown, then all that talent doesn't actually get to work on the on the Mania show and get WrestleMania payday.
And if you think about the bucket, in terms of just like everything WWE does and their moves they've made, like all the PLEs are now down to 4 matches. You know, every
Three.
Yeah. Now that ESPN's in there, the PLEs are getting smaller, and then like Larry was alluding to too with promotional work. Like you have like the in-show commercials like Cricket Wireless and Slim Jim and those sort of things, and obviously like Slim Jim's in bed with WWE, their logos are on the tables. So if that's framed in some sort of deal where it applies to the buckets, then even though you're in these commercials, maybe you're not getting, you know, your royalties or anything on it because your bucket has to fill still with those to even get that.
So Taylor, would you say that the product that they're getting, the consumer for WWE is getting for their money is getting shittier over time? Some sort of enshittification process?
It sure seems like it, but it seems like it's on both sides for the consumer and the working staff as well.
Yeah, I got some trouble. Like people were like pushing back on because I like trying to apply. If people aren't familiar, Corey Doctorow's work on enshittification and how there's this tech idea, but really it is kind of like from consumer capitalism too, where like you make the product, like you raise prices for lowering quality, right? And the problem with this is it's and I've used solutions to restaurants. If the burger keeps getting shittier and more expensive, somebody's going to give me a better burger, right?
Hey guys, who is one of the people that TKO has like a promotional deal with? Is DoorDash, right? DoorDash, right? You see all those commercials during the thing. You know, like the thing that's like running on like UFC Twitter is like Alexandra Pantoja, Mackenzie Dern, Eileen Perez, all working DoorDash while working for UFC. So, you know, like I wouldn't be surprised if you see, you know, somebody lower on the card, bringing you your food through DoorDash.
Yeah.
You know, just a joke there, but like maybe not a joke.
Well, I mean, if we get into the whole thing where like they're not, you know, we know they don't pay for travel. There's some thought that like out there that the plan is to maybe have AAA be the second level, not NXT. So it could get really like some of the stuff I'm seeing out of NXT like makes me think that you get really dire off there. I mean, like
they pulled all their stars from NXT to the main roster, and I say stars with like quotation marks, but like seriously, the people that they built over like last year in NXT, they're all gone, and they've not really replaced them with anybody. And as we talk
from the last 2-3 weeks, you're just like that's it. That's all that's there. It's crazy.
I mean, there is now Roku. The Roku is there to save the day, guys. You know
how this is the like. Let me give you guys a prompt. This is the worst NXT roster since.
Probably 2000.
Yeah, the game show era.
Wow. Yeah, probably 2010. Since 2011 when Fandango won the thing.
Because like people like let's talk about some of the eras. People talk about like Rainbow NXT, but Rainbow NXT had Gunther and Ilya and Soray and Tiffany.
I mean Pritchard, Laurinaitis tried to ruin it as best as they could. There was just too much good work already put in for them to do it.
Because we don't hear about any of these cuts from AAA itself. We haven't heard any of it. It seems like AAA actually has a budget to use guys and bring guys in. Because I have heard from a bird, the bird is the word, that guys when they work AAA, they actually get a payday from working AAA.
I think with AAA, the thing is they don't. I mean, they did get the local deal in Mexico. The economy in Mexico is coming up. So, I mean, if you're building that as a brand that can fill arenas, and I think the gates at these Mexican shows over time is getting higher. So there is kind of a path
Oh,
saying like, hey,
there
if this keeps going, then this is a brand that can support itself
Yeah.
as
That-
kind of like.
And I think it is kind of operating in some ways outside the WWE umbrella because they bought the company AAA for the name value. They're running in Mexico, which WWE's always kind of struggled in a sense at.
Yeah.
So it is kind of like its own little silo that's not under the tyranny, I guess, of standard WWE
And nobody, and
It's
nobody
TKO tyranny.
TKO
what's the line? Nobody,
The T and
nobody,
TKO
like,
is
I
for
saw
tyranny.
Yeah, I'm gonna say like nobody's booking better than like, than the Dead Man in Mexico.
Just think about what we're talking about right now. Go back to when they
Gracias,
bought
Taker.
AAA
Oh my
last
God.
year. Go back to when they bought AAA a year ago. Go back to what the experts were saying about this. People in Mexico, Lucha Libre, people in the United States. I mean, I interviewed Lucha Blog on my Substack when this, purchase occurred, and he would have thought this would have been by far the best ran and the most fan friendly promotion among all the WWE promotions.
Me?
I
No,
mean,
I'm serious.
hey.
Like me, no, seriously, me. Because I remember, like at the time, I was saying, like, look, I mean, it's a good fit because AAA has always been more of a WWE
Sports
style
entertainment.
promotion.
Yeah.
The bar was in hell with AAA because, like, really,
Yeah.
that was. Do you remember there was a Fantastic Mania, Triple Mania show for AAA where they forgot to put up a paywall, right?
yeah.
oh God.
Before
The one with
WWE
Vampiro's retirement.
I
and
mean,
they
it was
lost-
okay. Let's say the bar was low for AAA before coming
Yeah, it was-
in, but
it was bad. And
I
then,
mean,
like,
a
they
lot
knew-
of people expected. I mean, many people expected Conan to continue booking it.
No, but
And-
see, I knew, but like once they said that it was Borash and Taker, I was like, yeah, I mean that's gonna work. It's gonna work better than what they're rooting for because, like, Borash is a guy who respects the culture, and he's a guy like he's got friends with 10A, who's another guy who respects the culture. Like, I was talking about like Taker is a guy who basically pretended to be a dead man for 20 years, and what's more like AAA than pretending to be a dead man, right?
I mean,
we
he's
got
also
La
from
Parca,
Texas.
we got Vampiro.
I think
Yeah. I mean the day. I mean that's obviously something that's big into the culture, but
yeah.
I just think it's I think it's just hats off to them and hats off to the workers. I think
Yeah.
you take what should have been a disaster, Grande Americano. He just they managed to come in and put him in as kind of a sarcastic, as a wink wink baby face, and the fans got a kick out of it because they didn't. They had the thing is it's not hard.
It's a thing that gets-
It's
he
not
became-
hard.
BJ,
It's
he
not
became
hard to
a-
not insult. It's not hard to not insult your fans' intelligence.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
if you
it's-
look at everything else they're doing, it's Russo-esque in the way that they're insulting the fans' intelligence.
Grande, by the way,
it's
Grande,
booked by,
all respect to Mystico, but Grande might be the hottest star in
Yeah.
Mexico.
Yeah.
He's a big one.
That's crazy as that is.
He's
He would have thought
bec-
that from the Gulf
Man,
of America. Jesus.
he's become
Esa máscara no
a
te
super
pertenece,
norteño, like SOA. Like he's
I
super
mean, did you hear the
norteño,
pop
man.
the Creed brothers caught when they came out?
Oh yeah, it was great. It was
I
insane.
mean, it's like wow, this is hot.
And see, the story, like how he like initially got over is the whole thing with the Octagon, right? Our old friend Octagon, love Octagon. So like they did this thing, did the angle where he's working Octagon Junior, Grande, right? And so he comes out and he cuts a promo on Grande on Octagon Junior and says like that mask doesn't belong to you, Way, right? Which is like a whole thing because like Octagon's like fought. So the fans just went wild when he said that, right? So they're like, yeah, esta máscara no te pertenece, güey. Yo soy mexicano, right? And again, kudos to Kaiser because he is electric in this gimmick, right? He like the whole segment where where Chad comes out and beats up the blind comedian, and then like starts threatening his girl, like it, guys. I mean, yeah.
Arturo, did you know that his meet and greet sold out for WrestleMania week?
That's amazing.
I mean, I mean, hell, I mean, like as I said, like if you like, that's the guy that if that guy ever wanted to leave, like throw a bucket of money at him. Like,
I mean, TKO's like, forget the budget cuts. We gotta keep Miranda Americano and Danhausen. They're keeping us alive. God damn it!
As a T-shirt company, you know.
Oh, boy, is that the irony really just irony has a way.
I said Danhausen way back when. People can look up the receipts they want. I said he is a better fit for WWE. He's gonna go over. That crowd is gonna love him.
Yeah, because he doesn't have to wrestle there.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing.
You are cursed.
Yeah, it's the same reason they loved like.
And he's got a massive ego, so that fits in well with WWE too.
Absolutely.
Amen. But he, it has. It's worked. It's a very cartoon gimmick, but it works for that crowd. He can basically like live off of that and host for them and do stuff for them. For
and it's more adult cartoon, so it's not less insulting to their fans' intelligence. So
it's.
I do, getting back to the.
I do. By the way, right? I do wonder if Danhausen is getting a merch cut.
That was a big thing for him in AEW, was to get that merch cut, because he felt like he was being disrespected. He got public, and then that's when he got thrown off TV. So that might have been a big thing. He might have taken more merch and a lesser contract. That might be why he's main roster. I do also like going back to these pay cuts. It's gonna be something that we're gonna be seeing more throughout the year. And like me and Tay and everybody here has been talking about Q2, when we're hammering about Q2, because this war in Iran is getting stupid. It's going to keep going. And we just found out that Roman isn't working any dates in June, which is when the supposed Saudi date is going to happen. Do you guys really foresee that show happening or not?
I've been on record saying I don't think that show's happening. Right?
Yeah, I think WWE is going to do everything in their power to make it happen, but I don't know how it's going to.
Yeah, they have another Operation Freedom with U.S. vessels taking vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. I don't really think that's going to be transferring to the WWE envoys over there, and there's a reason why Roman went from talking about I'm going to be full time for the summer to that was a clerical error. And we sort of hit at that at the beginning, but like now it's even more clear to me about what's happening, especially as we're seeing
have we gotten ticket numbers for SummerSlam yet? I'm really curious what these numbers are going to look like.
It's looking really empty right now, man. It's looking real empty. Some people are buying those tickets, but like it's just a blue all over the place.
Well, after Arturo's coverage of WrestleMania and what we saw with that, if I'm a scalper, I'm not going anywhere near it. So that's gonna really hurt first count.
That was a big thing where like essentially like if I'm as I say like the scalper is taking on the risk and I kind of hinted and I didn't say that, but I think some of that was possibly also buyback, which theoretically. I believe it's not supposed to be legal, but I do think that some of the stuff that happened with WrestleMania was, I do think that like TKO was like self-dealing a little bit in some of those tickets, which is a thing that like promoters technically are not supposed to do, but it happens anyway. When I say self-dealing, it's like technically like imagine your baseball team in your town buying the tickets at gate and selling them through a scalper, or having a professional scalper that sells them, right? Which. So instead of like selling to you, they're selling at a higher rate. That's bad, right? And I think some of that happened, and it was driving the wackiness of those numbers going up and down, right? I'm really curious. I think people were looking at the prices and they're low, but I'm really curious to see what the first drop looks like when WrestleTick drops it, because I feel like they know that these tickets are not moving, right? And they're not moving elsewhere, but like again, they had to like break John Cena. Like, in case of emergency, break John Cena and bring him in for Backlash, right? Which is kind of funny. How can you go? Like, I thought he was retired, right? I thought he was done with wrestling. What's going on?
He retired.
He also has a big announcement for Club WWE. Game-changing announcements here.
What? Give me a prediction of what that announcement is going to be, though.
He's probably gonna announce that he's gonna be the host, the official host of SummerSlam, man.
Oh God.
He's got a host Night of Champions.
Yeah.
God.
The official PLE host of ESPN, John Cena.
He's taking all Roman's June dates.
Have we seen any? I believe I saw that they did like WrestleMania was not top 10 in Canada in Quebec, right? I'm correct on that, right?
It was. I was talking to Doc about this in the Discord. I think it's because the way Tadam does it is it's by Monday through Sunday, but where you are in the region. So in Europe and Asia, WrestleMania Sunday actually happened on Monday. So it bounced a week out. So if you look at the week WrestleMania aired, which is like the 13th through the 20th on Tadam, both nights are on Canada there. But if you bump it up to the following week when like it appears
So
on
shows, I'm looking at 27 through the 3rd. It's Raw and SmackDown are there, right? I'm looking at the previous week, 20 to the 26th. And Raw is there, SmackDown is there, WrestleMania is not there. And I'm looking
Canada's not there.
I'm looking at Canada, yeah.
Oh.
And I'm looking at 4/13/19. And WrestleMania is there, 4 and 5, right? So it is for Canada. So it was 4 and 5. It was behind Temptation Island and like something called Salash and Jordan Matter. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, the international WrestleMania numbers don't look good, and
I mean they're okay, but I mean like they're essentially like not like setting the world on fire.
Yeah.
Which I mean again we can use it to kind of project out like the U.S. numbers, which again we haven't heard a peep of, right? Actually, a really interesting point, BJ. You and I like have talked about this, but I don't think I've actually brought it up. Which is there's some really interesting stuff about like how Disney supposedly put out this whole thing about how they're not they're keeping ESPN, right? There's been some rumors about possibly them getting rid of that.
Yeah, that's been floating around for a while, but I guess that.
Yeah, I mean,
it wasn't really out in the news much, but then suddenly someone came out and said, "Oh yeah, there's the rumors aren't true." You know, it turns out they're not going to be shopping ESPN. And everyone's like, "What? They were?" But yeah,
they probably like maybe like the market dried up because there's a lot of like money tied up in the money that's floating out there. A lot of that is like Gulf State money, and it's tied up in the Paramount deal, and even that Paramount deal's in trouble because those guys are not liquid. So. I would imagine expecting other acquisitions. Right?
I think that the Paramount deal, like you said, I think it's a huge factor in this because it's just you don't know you don't even know who your buyers are at this point. And I mean, ESPN's the biggest set of channels on cable. And you're also, I mean, what would that include? That obviously include those digital assets that include this new Ultimate app, which, does not seem to be the success that they thought. It also brings with it billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars in cost because of the sports contracts.
To be fair, also CW, the CW sports are going to start airing on the ESPN Unlimited.
Yes.
So we now have a home for the NXT PLEs.
Yeah.
Like they will have Pac-10 on there, and the NASCAR Nextel series. So it's gonna be something. I mean,
I was gonna basically say like if you kind of look at the broad world, I mean, who could buy Comcast, or but they already have Sunday Night Football, so it has to be somebody who really doesn't necessarily have a deal.
Yeah. They have Sunday Night Football and they have the NBA now. So what do they really need?
I mean, essentially, Fox has football, and again, because the biggest property on ESPN is Sunday Night Football. So, like, Fox has Sunday Night Football, CBS has Sunday Night Football, ABC obviously owns ESPN, so the ones that are getting rid of it or selling it. NBC has Sunday Night, which has become like the biggest property, right? So, who could Fox Sports can't really buy it, right?
And so, Warner's getting bought by Paramount, so they can't.
Well, the only people who could, the only people who could really buy it, it would either have to be Amazon, Netflix, or YouTube, right? And I mean, I guess YouTube could buy ESPN. I mean, that's okay. If Google wanted to,
I mean, Apple could pull it off, but that's not there's nowhere in the direction they've been heading.
It's a better fit with you. I know YouTube's been trying to build the sports presence, so it'd probably be a better fit for YouTube.
Again, we're speculating and we know that YouTube's been trying to build like an Oakland sports presence and like kind of a ESPN property.
Yeah.
But like,
they for a while, I know for a bit they were considering a purchase of TNT Sports because they were going to tell ESPN to take a walk because basically when they brought ESPN on board YouTube TV, it just the carriage fee carryover was killer. And that's been a big issue when they kind of made their current deal with ESPN. It's like I don't know if the ESPN app's been available yet to the YouTube TV subscribers, but it was supposed to be. And it's like it's something that was supposed to happen in 2026, and it's
the point that was interesting in that ESPN story, like getting back to like the WrestleMania and stuff, is it was noted that revenue for ESPN was down this year, and it was down because of increased license fees.
Which would be the big one this year was WWE, and
and this is why why is ESPN mad at having to carry WWE? Because essentially they're carrying WWE, and it's a cost which they're not getting any benefit from, right? So it's a cost item, and they're not offsetting that cost item because they're spending $325 million for it. Right.
Hey guys, it's been 2 weeks since WrestleMania. Did we ever get that PR post about the success of WrestleMania?
We have not gotten that. We've not gotten that from the ESPN
I went and liked the ESPN PR account just to follow it to see if that would come, and I haven't. If it was on there, I haven't seen it. But I think that with ESPN, I think with Disney, I think so.
People understand, ESPN has a dedicated website that is called ESPN Press Room, where they put out press releases on their shows, and they have a Twitter where they do that. So, and they do that continuously. Keep going, DJ.
Yeah. But I was gonna say I kind of lost count. I was just kind of lost track of where it was, but but I mean, to me, I think what we'll see is who's running Disney right now.
I think it's still Iger, isn't it?
I think it is Iger, yeah. But I mean, he's been.
How long is he staying? How long is he going to be staying there?
Oof, I know he had an.
Well, here's the real. Well, Josh D'Amaro, I knew he'd taken over recently. He became CEO effective on March 18th. Okay. Bob Iger was the CEO, months before that when they made this deal with WWE and ESPN, and that was a deal that was done higher than ESPN. It was done at the top level, people. Yeah. And the story I got was this was something that was kind of a favor for Ari, and I think a lot of it had to do with them dumping UFC because let's put it this way: Paramount overpaid so much for UFC. And it just goes to show you how, dim-witted David Ellison is, first of all, because the ESPN was offering less than half of what they were paying on their original deal for UFC. And while at the same time, TKO had $1 billion a year target, which was just insane. They were going to have to put together 4 or 5 separate deals to get somewhere near there. And they just do not have enough content or interest to do that. And then out of nowhere, once the Paramount deal gets approved and goes through for the Ellisons, first thing they do is they sign UFC. So that's probably something that the Trump administration helped them out with. And you also have, you also had some helping out with, WWE and the pay-per-view stuff. They got it off Peacock. Well, then they get this huge deal from Disney. And it's with D'Amaro in, I don't know if he's I don't know if this is something that's going to... I think this is going to be something where they're going to have to start re-examining some of these licenses because they were doing this last year with Major League Baseball. They were doing this last year with the UFC. And it's just there's no way you could say they're not going to re-examine this WWE deal, especially with the lack of subs on that app.
Effectively, I've said that the reason, essentially so the hidden truth of the story is that they got canceled. WWE got canceled by NBC and Peacock, and I suspect, and we talked about this, we think that they were probably victim of kind of, yes, they were planning to do merger divestiture, like the Versant, which is a company that has USA. They were splitting that off, and they were talking with WWE about merging. That didn't end up happening, but that was kind of happening in the background. So they canceled their deal with like WWE, and WWE needed a home. ESPN needed someone, right? They needed a shiny toy to go negotiate with the cable companies for higher carriage fees, right? And so they thought it was a good fit, and they paid this loss leader. When I say loss leader, they paid this money up front, right, on the interest of getting the higher carriage fees. But what ended up happening was that really didn't move the needle for them. But they lucked out because the MLB local network will die, right? And so MLB came on the ESPN app, and that ended up giving them a case for raising the fees and like getting the clients. But then why am I paying WWE $325 million for? And I think some of what we've seen with the promotion, with ESPN kind of taking over the promotion of the pay-per-views in the US, is because they're trying to, I mean, I just say, like, Josh Amaro just comes in, they're reviewing licenses. Can we actually make some money back on this, right? Can we sell these pay-per-views? Because the trick on this is, like, WWE is producing the pay-per-view, right?
Yeah.
But they don't care. They're like a paid musician. They produce the music. They don't get any money if the record sales, right? And effectively, actually, like, it makes more sense it makes more money for WWE if these shows are being watched outside the US, right? Because that's where they're actually, like, they're partners. Well, that puts them in the spot where, like, go ahead.
That's the option that matters, is the Netflix option. So they want those numbers.
Right, but the problem is, like, so people are talking about, like, people were making a whole thing about, like, oh, the AEW deal, or, like, they might can't, like, we don't know if they're going to renew it because we don't know who's going to be charged. That's fine, but, like, the deal you should be worried about is the ESPN WWE deal, because, as BJ's saying, I'm not sure that the new CEO, we know that people in inside ESPN don't like having this contract, right?
Yes.
And I am not if you're
there's been so much coming out of there about they don't even, ESPN doesn't, the people actually working at ESPN don't even understand why they have the deal in the first place.
How does ESPN make money on this deal?
And I think the smoking gun is, like we were talking about, is the PR account, because the WrestleMania numbers, the first hour of WrestleMania aired on ESPN, right? And we got those numbers. And from what I could find, I think WWE lied about that they were the highest rated show on ESPN that week. But from what I could tell, I think they were telling the truth that they were the highest rated thing on ESPN 2 all year, and they still didn't get a press release, right? So that shows how ESPN and Disney really think about this WWE deal. Is they're not even touting their highest number on that network.
Yeah.
Right, and I, as I come back to it, like, I don't know how it makes sense for ESPN to carry it, and, like, again, hidden in the pieces, talking about, like, Disney not getting rid of ESPN is them basically stating that, like, I mean, they don't say directly what's causing the drag, but they say, hey, we have a drag on our profits because of higher, fees, like higher license fees, and the only real big license is that WWE license, which,
yeah, they just cut, like you were alluding to, they just cut Sunday Night Baseball and, like, Friday Night Baseball last year.
Yeah.
Right, and that's a much more prestigious thing to own than WWE. So if they're losing on WWE, they're not.
I think the thing is I think they thought packaging the pay-per-views with that app, and these companies seeing that, special traditional cable companies, and thinking, wow, I can get my viewers these pay-per-views for free. But the thing is, it just gets back to this thing where people just don't understand that the wrestling business is a lot smaller potato in the eyes of viewers. And, most don't watch it. They may have casual interest in it, or watch it, or see what's going on, and know who John Cena is and stuff like that. But it was just, it just brings up, like, I mean, there is no synergy at all between these two. I mean, I've asked people this, a couple times, and there is just nothing going on between them. Like, despite what people think about the McAfee stuff and everything else, this is all stuff they've arranged on their own. There's no promotional work
Yeah.
happening between ESPN and WWE, and a lot of it's because they're just, I mean, WWE. Let's face it, with TKO, they just want to collect the money. They don't want to put. They don't want to really put. They see this as an excuse not to work harder or an excuse to cut roster money, and it just goes. It goes into how dangerous it just shows you how different, the AEW mentality is, which is, you're dealing with people that ran, who build things there.
Also,
They're car manufacturers. They're not people that, are private equity people, which is to squeeze every dime out of something, leave it a shell, and then try to sell it, and then try to upsell it for more than it's worth.
I was gonna say,
because that's what
Silver
Lake.
By the way, also that, hey, I can watch. You think it's not a draw to be able to watch it on glorious 720p on the ESPN app?
I know, that's another thing too. Yeah. It's like after all this, it's
their resolution from 20 years ago.
So bad. It's so bad. I do want to say this because I did miss the discussion on Josh D'Amaro, right? So it's not that he's not planning on doing the spin-off of ESPN. They pushed it down the road 6 to 9 months to see where they're at. I do think that having someone new in charge as opposed to having the older guard in there, and Josh D'Amaro is he's I guess born 1971. He would be a younger executive there in charge, and he probably would want to take a different direction. And WWE has never been one of their top priorities with ESPN. Although we did see them trying to push WWE wrestlers on properties. I think today they had Jacob Fatu with Stephen A on doing something.
Yeah, they're trying to push these pay-per-views because the only way they can make any revenue off this deal is they have to sell the pay-per-view. Because essentially, the people WWE doesn't make any money from pay-per-view buys or the unlimited buys. They have to it comes to ESPN, so they're trying to see if they can get their subscription numbers up. But effectively, we've seen no data to indicate that that's actually a strategy. And again, I'm looking at this and going honestly, if we're pushing it down the road and you're doing let's say you're doing an acquisition of ESPN, would you keep the WWE deal? I wouldn't.
That's $325 million that you could spend on an actual property that has movement, like what they spent on the Pac-10, which people love Pac-10 sports.
Yeah, so. I'm speaking dollars and cents, but again, show me how ESPN is making money off this, right? And if you convince me that that's happening, then I'll agree. But if I'm examining it's buried in the piece. Go read it. We've heard the rumors coming out, and we're saying that basically, I think that relationship with ESPN and WWE is one that's very, very
contentious. Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna. Okay. So Tay, Larry, and Arturo, I'm gonna ask you each this question. Do you think this can be salvaged? ESPN's pay-per-view deal, PLE deal with ESPN, ESPN's PLE deal with WWE. If you think it can be salvaged, how could it be salvaged? And if not, how long is it going to last? I'm going to go with Arturo first because I want to hear what he's got to say on this.
In my opinion, no, because essentially you would need to get something way hotter than they actually have now. And every indication shows me that WWE is not interested in making a better product to present on ESPN, right? They're actually interested in making it worse and shittier. So my take is, I think if I had to guess, I don't think WWE is going to be in ESPN in 2028, right? They might exit out earlier. I don't know what the situation is going to be. I don't know what's going to move, but I can't see how do you justify that expenditure, $325 million on your budget in this kind of economic environment? I don't see it. I don't see it. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's particularly we're saying it's a favor. So yeah, it doesn't seem reasonable to me.
Yeah, Larry, I'm going to go with Tate. Hey,
what
do you think?
Okay, you phrased that. I wasn't sure if it was me or Larry.
Yeah, it's
all good. I think what's interesting about this deal is I think it's pretty cut and dry, right? Because the question is how can ESPN make their money back? There's really only two paths. It's the subscriptions and it's ad revenue, and we know WWE's ad revenue is not great. That's why Fox hated the deal when they had SmackDown. And, you know, they're not on broadcast now, they're on cable, so less ad revenue there. They're not going to make it up there, so it has to be subscriptions. And we have the numbers for like what the WWE network did globally. We have a smidge of the ESPN Unlimited numbers, and I just don't think that target was ever realistic. The day that deal got announced is like there's no possible way they're going to hit 325 a year, and that's breaking even, let alone making money. How long it will last is interesting, just because of the WWE schedule, where, you know, everything is important is in Q1 and bleeds into Q2 a little bit with WrestleMania. So if they were going to cut bait, you're almost better cutting bait right now. This would be way too early, but I would think around this time next year, if it doesn't get better at all, this would be the time they would be looking to cut bait.
Larry, it's your show.
Brothers, we are in the Renaissance era, right? So what was going around on Twitter was like this picture of WWE in the Renaissance era, and we're in the Renaissance era. They had 5 top big 3 million, 2.9 million runs, right, for their shows. All of that was on Fox, on SmackDown. I do not think that with new management in Disney right now, we're having new management, a new CEO, where they're trying to like take stock of what they have, and with ESPN, I think they're gonna give what the articles have said is like they're going to try to give ESPN another try to make it profitable for them. Now, does WWE play into those plans? I don't know if there's a way where you can make WWE profitable or make it a hot property, because if you look at the complaints of the people who watch ESPN, is they don't want it on their network.
Yeah, they don't like it.
They don't like it. The ESPN watchers do not like it themselves. So whenever you see anybody posting about anything about ESPN and WWE, you get like 50 million complaints about, why is this on my ESPN? Well, what is this? Why is this fake wrestling stuff here? And it would make more sense if they were as hot as they were like in 2023 or 2024, but they're not. And I don't see like them making enough business for ESPN Plus to get those subscription base up to, you know, justify this expenditure. And like they said, like if they get out of it earlier, it's a much less like, you know, and we don't even know what their deal is. Like if WWE doesn't hit certain goals, maybe they do have an out clause where they don't have much of a penalty for getting rid of them. Because this was a last minute deal where ESPN had all the leverage. So we don't know what's going on. But it just doesn't seem to me like something that's gonna last. And I'm gonna throw out like something broad here. 6-9 months. That's about like December, January. I don't know if we're gonna see the Royal Rumble on ESPN Unlimited.
Wow. You see it making it just over a year.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. This is a thing where I think that I think this is, you know, everything goes until it doesn't, correct? I mean, basically, WWE was very, very fortunate to get the Netflix deal, even though it is very, very backloaded, and it is very, very much in Netflix's favor. And we don't even know what ratings data WWE can take out of there to use to try to get a new deal if they get dumped by Netflix. This was a very fortunate get for them because of that deal and because of the USA SmackDown deal. AEW was fortunate to get a good deal. The NFL, of course, has a big deal. The MLB had to get their deal restructured. I mean, at some point, you're starting to see where these things are slowing down as far as sports and wrestling and UFC and their deals. Like, the only reason they got $1 billion deals because of Trump. Otherwise, they're taking pennies on the dollar for the last deal that they had. And they're probably doing it just so they can keep relevant and stay on ESPN. They would take that less than half that they were offered. I think that, I don't know when it's going to happen. I'm going to guess it's going to be in the next year or two. I think at some point you're going to see companies are going to be like, we cannot afford to pay billions anymore when we're not getting the viewers we need or the ad revenues we need. And I think the other things that play factors into this, and this is stuff that Arturo and everybody here has talked about, is just the economy, the issues of the administration. We're becoming, these sports and brands are all world recognized, but the America's becoming less world friendly. And I think you put all these factors into place. I think within the next 2 years, you're going to start seeing people bail out a lot of these deals. I think this is where, AEW gets an advantage because they're just cheaper. They're top five, they make their thing, they work well with others, and they don't go for the top dollar all the time. They play it a little smarter. I think that helps. I think even if they have to take a lesser deal, they would be prepared and ready to do that. I don't think that's ever going to be in the cards with Endeavor and TKO. I think that it's max all the way because it's private equity, and if we don't get it, screw it. And I don't know what that means for WWE. I don't, that maybe it means they start getting, at some point they're going to get starting passed from hedge fund to hedge fund. That's what always happens in these situations.
Because the
I don't know
ultimate owner of them is Silver Lake.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most vicious, public equity funds out there. And, you think TKO and Endeavor's lawsuit history is interesting. Check out Silver Lake.
I would say that one of the key things that people aren't getting is this is as good as it gets for WWE employees right now. That's something changing, right?
Yeah.
And it's just going to keep getting worse over time because, again, the private equity guys, you need to kind of take steps to protect yourselves because, man, we've seen this movie play out before, right? We talked a little bit about go people watch things like Barbarians at the Gate, right? And feel for
which is one of the best TV movies ever made.
James Garner is so good in that.
And the cigarettes, the scenes over the cigarette customer
they smell
surveys.
Like shit. Yes,
they taste like shit. They smell like a fart.
Yes. Which again, actually, you know what? That actually does fit a little bit with the product right now.
But what the thing is, that makes it even crazier is that you have these you have a company that says, you know what, we're getting a flat rate. Let's not spend any money. Let's tell our talent we're going to pay them half. Yeah. Maybe this is their way of handling it. I don't know, but it's just, oh man, this week's just been crazy. It's just, Mania was crazy with all this. Now you come into this, and it's like, where do we go from here? And it's just I just don't see. Vince had a way of getting lucky, and when he needed it the most, and and they got kind of lucky because they got rid of him the last time at the perfect time. Triple H comes in, they get Cody, Bloodline's doing Sami Zayn, which Sami doesn't get the credit for that it deserves, and they're hot, and then other guys are getting hot because they reestablish who the baby faces are. And it leads to this, a new babyface era of WWE, which ends up being the biggest era they've had since Austin and Rock. And now it's just kind of like, okay, well, who's their next guy? Because we don't really see them getting an AEW babyface. There's really, Obafemi maybe. It just there doesn't seem to be the guy there. Maybe it's Obafemi. I don't know, but it's
it's whoever the AI chooses, man. Whoever the AI gets the prompts to push.
And that's the thing. It's there's nothing that's being done. There was always things being done. They were still a wrestling company, and they were set up to take advantage of those big cycles. But it's like with the way they're set up now, it's just like, okay, none of this is gonna make. None of this is this is cutting out edges of them that they've never had cut before, and it's gonna be. This is going to be painful, and I think this is going to accelerate their issues. And people always say, well, you said that about the Fox deal too. Well, I also told everybody from the minute they started airing on Fox, they were screwed. Once that deal came up, they were gone.
Yeah, because they were never going to hit those numbers that Fox wanted. They're never going to hit the demographics.
They weren't going to get.
They're not going to get it.
Yeah.
Well, I always remember the thing about that Fox premiere is you spent some of this is self-inflicted rules because it's topical. I remember watching it. I think it was one of the last times I watched. I was watching Raw and SmackDown continuously, and I remember they announced the Kofi Brock match, and I'd invested a lot of my fandom in Kofi, and they buried the fuck out of him.
just basically like stacked them up like a stack of cordwood and moved on. And that was the last. I mean, as a fan, as somebody who didn't been invested, I was like, well, these people don't give a shit about my investment. They don't care
Yeah.
about my investment in character.
That's
so
something.
why am I even bothering with these people? And it was kind of convenient, but they were doing that. They were doing the Saudi stuff, and I was like, okay, fine. And that was the end of my real kind of regular fandom. I become more of a casual fan of WWE, and I'll pop in and I'll watch it because we're doing this stuff, and I'll pay attention. But day to day, as a fan, invest in this. No, because I don't believe they respect me. And here's the thing: like this was an era where I think they still took time and care with the stories of the product.
Oh yeah.
And now it's wildly different, and it's kind of the comparison I'll use is like the switch from like the last season of NBA on TNT to like some of the like on NBC, where NBC is just like dramatically a better partner for the league and treats the product way better and presents a much better product. And I think that like I don't feel like TKO respects the customer or respects my time, right?
And I think that's another thing too. You're talking about them, not respecting the customer. I think this all began for their problem wise is that they finally found a dollar mark that their fans weren't going to follow them. And that was, just like the tweet that me and Ruben were posting and podcasting about all last year, which was, it was $93 a month if you wanted to get all the services to be able to watch all the WWE product. And that's before AAA was a factor in this, but of course you could see them other ways. But and they're on YouTube, but it's like I do not see those fans coming back. In fact, I know one person who started watching AEW, and they're like, wow, these are actually matches. And then they go back and they try to watch WWE, and they're like, man, these are slow. This is kind of stupid. But I think, the thing is I don't see them getting an Austin level or Cody level star that's going to make those people want to pay $93 a month.
At least not in America.
Like, why would you? I mean, why would you? And again, like obviously, there's the Fed brainwashing and like people saying like it's not real money, but like everything indicates that you're a top guy. If AEW will pay you, AEW will pay you better and treat you better. And here's the funny part: like you're saying, it's like objectively, I don't see how under current management, and as you said, like if they start getting sold between hedge funds, how do you match the quality that's being put on TV by CMLL or like AEW? In terms of like production quality, in terms of like licensed music, in terms of like entrances, in terms of ramps, in terms of like TV presentation, how do you match that, right?
Like, I mean, the only thing WWE really has over them at this point, the only thing WWE ever has over them at this point is the fact that they do the bigger shows in the bigger venues, and to me that's important because I think the fans are probably the most important thing in a wrestling show. I think the fans are the Greek chorus, as they say, but they're also the most important character. They drive the show, but in WWE that matters less than any other company, because the fan responses is canned, everything's canned, and
but I mean, they're making
you're starting to see them. You're starting to see like I think upcoming SmackDown tickets. I think they're sold about 8,500 as a 9,000 seat arena, which is pretty good, but it's like. I mean, a year ago they were doing 12, 13, 14,000 seats. Maybe it's just because of a certain part of the country. This is what they had available. I don't know, but I mean, but it's just the thing is like this is all good if they're still making tons of money, at least the TKO. But I think the real question comes, and Larry, you mentioned this all last night, is that they're going to get their Q2 back, and from the way they're reacting. It does not look like it's going to be good. And if this one's not good, how is the other one's going to be better? Because as you guys all of you have just said, they have this is the first quarter. This is the first part of the year where all the money's made, where all the big events are. This, and this is the very beginning of these deals with Paramount, or not with Paramount, but with ESPN and the PLEs. They got all this extra money, and it's like if they ain't hitting it with this. How are they going to hit it? It's like it's a big question.
I mean, it's wrestling is cyclical, and we are definitely heading into like a down period with WWE. right? And my question has always been, and I've been saying it from the beginning, is how does a down period, like again, how does a down period with WWE look when they have a debt service?
No, yeah, that's that's the problem
And we're
there.
starting to see how that looks, which is they're starting to fuck with payouts, the boys' payouts, right?
Yeah.
That's what they're starting to do. And but again, some of the boys have done that to themselves because like they could have taken some steps to kind of protect themselves, and we're gonna, like I said,
We
like
should probably we should
hold
probably
us.
mention the Coachman
Yeah,
Mark Henry video next because that plays right into this. But go
we
ahead.
did. I mean, they were talking about that, where like basically they were talking about how like they're fucking out with the payouts, which is something they haven't done for 30 years. We talked about this, but like I was like hold us to this. Like BJ and I are gonna write something. It's gonna be like it's gonna lay this out, right? We're gonna talk about like what's costing them money, how this compares to other sports, and like we're gonna write it, right? I've written things like this before. We're gonna do that because I always say that this like it's the same reason I did it when I was doing college football, because I felt that athletes who were putting their lives and their health on the line for my enjoyment deserve to be better taken care of, right? Because like you're selling out your bodies, you're doing all this stuff, and I feel like there's a responsibility for taking care of that. And I feel like where it kind of gets offensive to me a little bit is that I feel that like we've fallen into this thing with this company that we know does not take care of its people, right? We know that TKO is not a company with a good track record, right? And this is a bad place for the business to be, I think. And thankfully, we have other companies that are doing well, but like we still have a giant problem with these people kind of involved in the situation. As I said, we're going to write out this case to kind of explain it to people. But yeah, I mean, like I think that like ultimately, I think what where it's interesting is I do think because they're fucking with the boys' payouts, you're getting people like Coachman, you're getting people like Mark Henry, who's like the most fed up people. Like he's a guy who's a lifer. I mean, obviously he was to AEW, but he really was always kind of loyal to WWE. Kind of speaking out and talking about, hey man, this is really not cool, right? This is not you're fucking with the payouts, and nobody's fucked with payouts for 30 years, right? And this is the kind of stuff that this is the kind of stuff that happens in Japan. This kind of stuff that used to happen in like old school territories that would lead to like people walking from the company and founding their own company and doing a wildcat territory because like they were pissed. Like this is at least like people doing no-op, right? Because like somebody's like angry at like the payouts being fucked with and somebody walks, right? And this has not been a thing that's necessarily happened in the U.S. recently, in large part because like guaranteed money was being paid out to everyone. That makes, I mean, guaranteed money rights a lot of wrongs, right? And I think once you get into a situation where that's not the case, then you're changing the dynamics of the business massively, right?
Yeah.
So thoughts, guys?
I think it's funny this talk happened because we've been talking about this for a couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's like okay, where and I mean and Arturo's been screaming it, Larry's been screaming it. It's like, well, if you had a CBA, well, if you had a CBA, well, if you had a CBA, then you see what's coming out this week. You find out someone took a 50% pay cut. You found out they're messing with guarantees. There's the 90-day window issue. You start finding out there's all these backdoors they are to getting into the money. And it's like, and now it's like I mean, from the way it sounded, I think from the MX, the MXM video or interview. I'm sorry if I messed up the tag team name, but where the bucket, what do they call it? The bucket, the bucket,
the bucket, yeah,
yeah, the
basically,
bucket. Where basically the company's goal is to make sure you're always sitting at your downside guarantee, which is what you're supposed to make if you don't do anything during this year. And it's
yeah.
like that's a remarkably different from how contracts were done before, where you got a merch cut, you got this, you got that.
Well, I
And
mean, they're
I
basically
think it's probably in response to higher salaries they've had to pay because of competition with AEW, because of just basically, they're making a lot of money. Some of and to keep making that money, you have to keep guys. But obviously that thinking's changed. But I think when I heard when I heard Henry and Coachman, I'm like, man, these guys sound like they're ready for a union. And
I
I
mean, I
think
think
that that's got to be I mean, and if they're talking about it, others have to be talking about it. But then you get run into the issue where Tony doesn't want a union. You know, CMLL is not gonna. You know, I mean, not CML. You know, you talked about Mexico earlier, but you know, it's like other TNA sure as hell doesn't want a union. You know, so
I mean,
how
I
far
think
can it get?
ultimately, well, I mean, I think ultimately, if this is all, these things are all a process, right? And I think that, like, as I said, like, you need to kind of like start thinking about how do you protect the talent? Like, how does talent protect itself against, you know, like vulture hedge funds coming in, which is essentially what's happening,
Vulture
and
capitalist.
vulture capitalists coming in, like stealing your money, like, and you were already getting your money stolen, but it was a more equitable agreement. Now you're getting to a situation where, like, yeah, I mean, like, they're going to basically pass all the costs down to you, and you're ultimately a talent. So you really do need to start thinking about, okay, so what do we do, right? Um, it's it's a really tough thing because this is, I've been saying for a while that, you know, the down cycle is going to happen, and I think I was raising the call on the Roman contract, right? And I do kind of think they probably fucked with his money a little bit, but I mean that's just my opinion. I've been, again, I've been prepping to do me like I was wrong on that, but I did not expect them to fuck with everyone's contracts, right? And it seems
Well, at
like,
the time, it was just it seemed to be the big time, big name, big money part timers. But then you
yeah,
find out it's everybody,
right.
and I think that was a shock to everybody. And as I mean, it's harder to get information out of that locker room now. They
That's
have
probably
really put the fear of
why.
God into them, and
Yeah.
I mean I can tell that because I mean you guys know the stuff that I've covered over the last couple years.
There's okay,
Yeah.
so there's like there's people understand them, like, so like people talk to BJ, people talk to some other folks we know, we hear stuff, and as I said, I want nobody. Everybody's being weird, and nobody's coming on the record, and nobody's giving you double sourcing on this. Right? We do have some stories, but I think again, Brian. I mentioned Brian Oliver's talking about like there's a bunch of other people like talking, but nobody's kind of confirming or coming enough so you can kind of
They
like you can sort
can't.
of,
Like there's such a squeeze on them, and
yeah.
pretty much the word they've given is if anything comes out at all about anybody being upset about anything, like I'm surprised as much information is coming out
Well, I
now as
mean,
it has.
there.
Yeah.
Do we want to mention the one person who is coming out and saying stuff? You must
That
have seen this. Like, it's a great post. So,
the oh
a
go ahead.
certain a female wrestler who is best friends with perhaps the highest paid female talent in North America, uh, like put out this photo, right, of her. She's wearing a grill, right, and she's got like a pinky ring and a watch, and she's posing in in a photo that looks very much like Trevor Lawrence, right? The quarterback,
Uh,
a famous photo of Trevor Lawrence, quarterback of the Jags. Why
I'm
would
just gonna
Bailey?
sing. I'm just gonna sing something right now. It has nothing to do with anything. Okay, guys, doesn't have anything. Hey Bailey. Okay, that's it. That's it.
Hey. So yeah, no. Bailey put out this like great post. She was retweeting all the stuff out from the New Day. She put out this post where basically she's cosplaying as Trevor Lawrence. So read that as you will. I am not going to comment, but like as you say, like she's kind of. It does certainly seem like she's daring them to like fire me. I'm like the famous Ric Flair, fire me. I'm already fired, right?
I
I mean,
I think this is gonna be a windfall of stuff that's happening, and you know
well,
the
by the way,
other
like
the
I want to point out because it's important that like somebody like Bailey is doing this because there's a famous clip of her. She's one of the persons they've sent out like, and she's I think it's Fox News, and she's talking to the Fox News host, and she's explaining how she has to pay for her own travel and expenses, and then like the Fox News host is like, why don't you just talk to your union rep? Why are they doing this to you? It's like because the Fox host doesn't realize that like even though Bailey is an entertainer, she's not sad, right?
yeah.
Um, and I
Collective
think that's been mostly
bargaining
scripted.
agreements, folks. CBAs. I cannot wait to see what you and BJ cook up on that. This
Yeah, I can wait.
this thing where we're just sitting here and we're waiting. We're gonna be way ahead again. Now we're gonna be ahead on this, guys. Hey, who was ahead on the WrestleMania
By the way,
tickets?
I mentioned, and I'll mention this again. If any wrestlers could be listening to this, I urge you to look up Bill Russell, right? The Celtics great Bill Russell, and the history of the NBA Players Association. Fascinating and probably very applicable to you guys.
All-Star
If
game.
you want to, like, and that one actually, like, really, like, that was exactly because the NBA was fucking with their payouts and was not paying benefits to veterans. That's exactly why that union happened, because the NBA owners were fucking with the NBA players' payouts. Exactly
Guys,
like what's happening now.
Guys, when was the last time we heard anything about Legends deals?
Ooh, that's a good one. Wasn't Ric Flair really, like, salty? I mean, he's always, but I think he was pretty salty a while back, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's been salty about everything lately. But
yeah, but he did put out a post talking
He's got
about
good points, even though it's Rick. But
he was talking about Tony taking care of him and him being so appreciative of Tony Khan. I do want to say this part though. We didn't really hit on it for this, but like, if you're Tony Khan, you don't have a salary cap. Like, we probably have guessed right now that TKO has given WWE a budget, right? That they have to work within. It feels like
I
that.
don't think it's even a guess. I mean, I think at this point you assume that, like, as
Yeah.
I said, like, again, so people understand that. Like, so the way this works is, because of the way the merger is done, where you basically take on debt, you basically borrow money to pay off the executives who, like, leave, and then, like, the company that's left has to, like, service its debt. That means here's $100 you owe at the end of the month, and if you don't pay that $100, then, like, you're fucked, right? You have to pay it, right? So you either pay it by selling more tickets or getting more money, or you pay it by cutting costs, right?
Yeah.
And this is exactly what's happening. They have a budget. They're not meeting their earnings targets, so they need to cut to everyone. Now, the issue is that they're not cutting executive salaries, right? Because I think people were putting this out like these guys are making record money. They're cutting the salary of the talent. And, like, again, if you look at something like the NBA could never do that, because the way the NBA works is, or the NFL or Major League Baseball, is 50% of the money, more or less. I mean, it goes up a little down, but about half the money goes to the players, right? That's the way it works.
No matter what.
Yeah.
No matter what, right? And, like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's 50%, right? And the way that works is, like, I mean, you can it shifts between, like, who gets what, and the better players get. So, but ultimately, 50% of the money has to go. And if you donate 50%, then there's, like, this fund they have that makes up the shortfall, and then everyone gets an extra check at the end of the day. Like, the way if they're making a little bit more, then money gets sent back to the owners. But that's really kind of the way that works. And the reason that is so essentially, like, when something happens, the cost is shared between the owners and the players, but then the owners can't just come in and start fucking with the players' money, right? Because, like,
Yeah.
I have expenses, man. And really, that's kind of where we're at. We're getting, they're fucking with the guaranteed money, which is, like, the thing that hasn't happened.
Yeah, and if you're Tony Khan, and he's been dealing with the Jaguars roster forever, and his roster now he's been dealing with that for 7 years, and he probably doesn't have the same kind of caps that WWE has on there. And
I think one of the things, the couple things is we know Tony pays at the level comparable to what he's paying. Or supposedly
Hey, Arturo. One Phil Brooks said he hates guaranteed money because it ruined wrestling. All right.
I'm gonna say, like, he pays out the. I'm sure he doesn't hate guaranteed money. Like, I'm sure he's not happy if somebody's fucking with guaranteed money now. You got that mortgage to pay. I'm gonna say that, like, effectively, Tony pays at a higher rate. We've heard stories from people like Jericho and other people where, like, he puts people on the payroll, on the regular payroll. So basically, that the reason you would do that is you put them on the regular payroll. So even though they're employees, and they get the benefits. And when I say benefits, health benefits, and, like, insurance, and, like, there's a lot of things.
Stock options.
I like the other Phil Brooks complaint about AEW was that they didn't just send him to. Remember how his entire health crisis in WWE was because they didn't send him, they sent him to their doctor. Yes. And then AJ took him to her doctor, where he found out that he had, a massive infection and all these other health issues. Well, in AEW, you pick your own doctor. You pick who your surgeon's going to be. You do that yourself. And he was angry because when he got hurt and hurt his foot, he had to go pick his own doctor and his own surgeon and
what
do
a
all that.
Baby,
it's like,
now, again,
they're doing this because you said this is how it would work better. You know,
I
and
want to couch this because we don't know this for sure. We know this from hearsay, but we do think that like they are, at least some people are being provided with like obviously they're getting expensed out for like travel and a lot of other things and benefits and so well. But like again, whereas we know WWE contracts because they've been sued a lot, and so those contracts are a matter of public record. I don't believe we've seen. I mean, I think we've seen a tier 0. I think that Nick Nemetz is the only one. Not Nick, his brother.
Ryan,
I think
Ryan
I think that's
Nemitz.
the only one, and that's a tier 0. So I don't think we've seen a tier 1 in a matter of public record as of yet, right? At some point, maybe it will happen. Somebody will talk about like the benefits, but like everything I hear, right? Again, hearsay, is that they are looking for ways to provide benefits. But I mean, I think again,
It's
I don't know
gonna
how he feels, but
it's gonna be a very interesting next year, especially we know all the big contracts are up in 2027, and now we have all this news about cuts and pay cuts and expensive things. I just think 2027 got way more interesting, guys. But yeah, this is gonna come out on Friday because I have other things coming out this week. You probably listened to the four of us talk basketball on the Round Ball Rock Report.
yes.
This is something that we're trying out here, and I wanted to try it with BJ, one of my favorite sports writers over the last 20 years. I put you over, man.
Thank you,
Tay,
appreciate it.
who's I watch his previews for the playoffs, for the season. I love what you've done. Like, Tay, you've been like one of my favorite finds, and like having you on here and like getting you to like get out there and talk about not just wrestling, but being able to talk sports with you and other things has been great, man. And in my whole year of doing this, you've become one of my best friends doing this. So I want to say thank you, man. Actually, the
Yeah,
three of you are pretty much like my crew here. Shout out to you, Matt, also who's not here with us. But like everything that I've been doing this year has been sort of like culminating in all these other projects that I've been happy to do. We've done después apuestas, masquera contra caballero. Then it's gonna be, it's me and Arturo talking to a bunch of historical lucha people who have, who study film, who are historians in lucha libre, who are YouTube creators, who have their own podcasts on lucha, who are photographers. One of my friends, Kev, he is actually one of the guys that does the travel for guys to go over to Zona and over to the Crash, and it's amazing the people that I've got for this show, for this series of show we have here. We're also gonna start some things, because we're gonna do a lot of things here that we're taking a travel and we're taking like this history lessons on things, and that's what I love. I love teaching. I love learning, and that's sort of like the directions we're going with this. There still will be interviews, guys, and I'll still be talking to people, but we're gonna have a little bit of a shift of what we're doing and how we're doing shows and the shows that you're gonna hear on the next coming months. But I'm really proud of the work that I've done and the people I've recorded with, including these three fine gentlemen here who've recorded a lot of stuff that's in the can that you guys haven't heard with that I can't wait to share with you guys.
Have you
You,
heard
you
the Lamamia episode yet?
Yes, you have not heard that. You have not heard Chuck Norris. You have not heard. I'm gonna. I know you heard
We
it in the
did
first part of the show.
commentary. We did commentary for most of Chuck Norris's best on-screen fights. The only thing I think we may have missed would have been the ass whooping he gave the terrorists in the Delta Force,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
wasn't much of a martial arts performance. It was more of a vengeance, thus my name is Chuck thing. But
yeah.
yeah,
I'm excited for that one.
God, that was a fun thing to do.
yeah.
That hasn't come out yet because I will listen to it for sure.
Oh yeah, Oh yeah. By the way, we did hit the Walker switch on that taste, so you're gonna enjoy that.
The Walker switch. The Walker switch got hit. Yes. Definitely.
Yeah, we hit the Walker switch on there, but
Somehow Larry broke into Conan O'Brien's house and grabbed the Walker switch, and with Dobermans chasing him down the street and with him knocking him out like Arnold Schwarzenegger in True Lies, he got away with the Walker switch. So, kudos to Larry for going all out.
Hey, and like we also I wanted to break this because, guys, it's been 30 years since 1996. A lot of things happened in 1996. I'm surprised we haven't had the big NWO thing yet, in anywhere, right? But we are not gonna march down that road that's been marched down so many freaking times. You might as well call them Missy Hyatt. Anyway, we are of course we are gonna cover here on this show.
I'll tell you what, Missy's brilliant when it comes to the wrestling business.
Oh,
She's a
I
very,
love
very
her
smart
post,
person.
man.
And I don't really care for her or Mark and Janelle Grant. I think they're disgusting. But
Yeah,
um,
yeah. The
anyway,
comments
go
on
ahead.
Janelle Grant are, but I am going to let this out here out of the bag. In August, we are going to start down the road to cover 30 years of the J Crown. It's been 30 years since the J Crown tournament to put 8 belts, 8 world titles, including from the NWA, from the UWA, from New Japan Pro Wrestling, from Wrestle and Romance, and even the World Wrestling Federation to combine together, not to form a Megazord, not to form a Voltron, but to form the J Crown. We have some special guests lined up. BJ, you kind of already broke kayfabe on that. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I should probably shut my mouth. But we're hoping to get Sonny on the show. Me and him have been friends for about a long, long time. But if you get a chance, go to his website, go to his social media. He is selling limited edition jackets that he's been wearing
They're sick.
to the different shows that has the selfie icon logo of him, the inventor of the selfie, and apparently they're flying off the shelves because they look really cool.
Yeah.
It is sunny, so it's fun. So anyway, if you get a chance, grab that. But we're hoping to have him on. He obviously, the face of the J Crown was the Ultimo Dragon, and in the United States anyway, the face of the J Crown was Ultimo Dragon. He came out that's it ended up inspiring thousands of wrestlers. Years later, Kenny Omega, the belt collector gimmick, Ultimo Monet, Mercedes Monet, Sasha Banks. It ended up inspiring all these wrestlers for years, the J Crown and Ultimo Dragon, and we'll dive into what's going on with it, and hopefully get Sonny's opinion. He was friends with all those people, and he's still friends with them, and I think he was just hanging out with Muda and Chono over WrestleMania weekend. So, but yeah, hopefully we'll get him on here, and he's a great Midwestern guy, and a huge gearhead like me. So
Oh man, when I was a kid, he was all over Black Belt magazine. Like,
yeah, you sent me some clips of him doing
katas.
Yeah, doing katas, and I don't think people realize how legit him and Eric Bischoff actually were at martial arts. Like, they were very top 10. They were very top tier karate tournament fighters. And and a lot of people in the after the following UFC and MMA days, they kind of looked down on that. But the thing is you weren't trying to kill each other. I mean, those are defense systems, but you couldn't really do those to each other. You were going to severely injure each other.
Yeah.
So UFC kind of made it a sport, but it's still with some those guys were just very good athletes and top of the line, and and Sonny has I think Sonny's a big factor in the popularity of Japanese wrestling in the United States.
Absolutely.
He was he translated a lot. That's where his role came into play. Then he ended up being a manager on TV, and but hopefully we'll get him on, and he's also was a groundbreaker. He was part of the lawsuit against the Russo era WCW for racial discrimination.
Yeah, that is a famous lawsuit.
And there was also the EEOC lawsuit, where they fought independent contractor status, and they got a pretty sizable settlement. But that was probably the strongest case they ever made against independent contractor status was Sonny in that group.
Absolutely love that. I cannot wait to give Sonny the welcome to the longest running episodic Asian American Filipino ran podcast on pro wrestling. I cannot wait to give him that greeting. But yeah, guys, we have a lot of stuff coming up. I'm breaking that a little early because it's about 3 months away. but if I say it now, we can build it up and make it bigger because you
There we
guys have
go.
no idea who we have. I just broke Sonny Ono. I did not say any other name there. I just broke Sonny Ono, but you don't know who else we have lined up for there. But yeah, check it out for that.
They'll
Check
be
out,
great.
yeah, definitely check out BJ on bbethel.substack.com. Check out Tay on his YouTube, Tay KZ, all social media, Tay KZ. Also, he writes for the Social Suplex Network, and his beat that he covers, it's near and dear to me and Arturo's heart, Dragon Gate. Yeah, look out for that. Thank you, Tay, for coming on here, man. I absolutely love having you on all the time.
Yep, always a pleasure. I love coming on, talking ball with you guys.
Bro, we are all ball knowers here, and of course welcoming Arturo, of course my partner in this endeavor. Me and BJ also is the Three Stooges of this, but also we are covering Lucha Libre and we're doing it with the utmost respect. And we done what other people don't do. We talk to actual Mexicans about Mexican pro wrestling. Isn't that right, Arturo?
That is a wild idea, wild and wacky.
I know. To actually talk to the people that know what they're talking about.
No, I mean, like, here's the thing. I think
You
that,
guys
like,
are picky. See, you guys are journalists and you don't even know it.
I think that, like, it is kind of important to get like these stories, to get these people kind of like talking and telling their own stories. And I think as kind of it becomes more important, it's good, it's cool, and hopefully, we get people to kind of like get on tape and like tell their stories and ask good questions. Hopefully, people enjoy it, right? I think that, like, we try, right, and hopefully people kind of enjoy what we do.
Yeah, I try to speak Spanish. It's not that good, but I try, and I absolutely love talking to Orlando. We just did the first episode with Orlando, but we have a lot of stuff that we recorded with him. By the way, I get his book. It is, what is that book again, Arturo? I know we did the read at the end of the beginning of the show.
It is called Lucha Libre from Artes de México. It is on Amazon and is very, very cool.
Yeah, the link will be in the episode description. Also, I'm going to link one of the movies that he has done. It's called, like, the Budokan Azteca. It's about the Mendoza family. The Moreno family. Cynthia Moreno, Lily Moreno. There are a bunch of, Lucha Libre luchadores who wrestled in Japan in Joshi. They wrestled, like, your favorite Joshi's favorite Joshi. They have matches with the Jumping Bong Angels, with the Crush Gals. They also, Cynthia Moreno is married to one Dr. Wagner Jr., whose sons Galeno and Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. just had their big reunion on AAA on Saturday, which I thought was pretty cool. So, that will be there just, to check out all this stuff. I absolutely love talking to you guys. I love this stuff, man.
Well, thanks it's been a lot of fun, so thanks. But, everybody have a good week.
Yeah, I hope everybody had a good week. This is Friday. This is coming out. But hopefully you listen to all that stuff. I hope you guys liked us talking about basketball because I loved hearing all of us just like, bam, just like, I just gave the one prompt and we just did like an hour and I thought it was pretty damn good.
And
so
I did not tell nearly all the cool stories that I have, hopefully, for basketball.
Yeah, guys, thank you for joining us on that. That was awesome. Love having you guys on. Thank you, Tay, for coming on again. One more time, go to thegreatfowler.com. Donate to our friend Jay Fowler, friend of the show. You heard him last week. Tell his story. Great guy. Do what you can. Do what you must, but always be kind to everyone. Thank you, BJ. Thank you, Arturo. Arturo, give us your last line in Español, por favor.
Buenas noches y que sigan pasándola muy, muy bien.
Yeah. Also, BJ, why don't you give us some good old American English?
I don't speak Spanish. Ron Burgundy, 2003. Got that super lame, but okay, I'm gonna roll with it. Go for it.
Hey, yeah, guys. I'm gonna quote the returning Seiya freaking Sonata and say, "See you next time."
Bye.